Good evening, everyone. Welcome to April 14th City Council meeting. This meeting is being recorded in accordance with state open meeting law, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of 10 or more people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation. Additionally, all votes taken by the City Council during this and future remote meetings will be by roll call vote. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to request to speak. And if you are watching on a computer or device, there is a raise hand button that you can tap or press to request to speak. Please use either of these options during oral communications to be recognized to speak. That being said, hold on one second. I'm trying to get, all right, James, where is my panelist for speakers?
Bottom center, panelists, and then you'll look over on the right and it switches from panelists to attendees.
All right, there we go.
Two tabs there.
Yeah, participants, there we go. All right. We're not going to do the flag salute in the moment of silence. Hopefully we'll be able to do that soon when we get back into full council. So that being said, Madam Clerk, can we have the first order of business, please?
First order of business is oral communications.
Thank you. So under oral communications, the public shall have the opportunity at every regularly scheduled meeting to be heard under oral communications on matters not appearing on the agenda. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to city business to appear before the council, state their problem without debate, and the matter shall be referred to the proper agency through the office of the mayor. The residents will be notified within 2 weeks period relative to the disposition of same, and a copy shall be forwarded to the city council. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each. The council president shall not allow complaints as to individual performance. Is there anybody that would like to speak under oral communications? Let's see here. Okay, we have one speaker so far, and I will allow him to speak if I can. So, James, I'm clicking on his hand. I can't get a speaker button for some reason. There we go. That's better. All right. Jim, are you there? Jim?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Jim. Name and address for the record, please.
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Jim Towne, Towne, and I live at 12 Links Road, Links Road in Gloucester.
Thank you. State what you're here for this evening.
So good evening. A couple of matters. First of all, you know, I thank everyone for their continued service and all the effort that we're doing in Gloucester to try to keep everyone safe, which is what starts off my first discussion point, which is, you know, in terms of the city meetings and other things, I think it would be the city to focus on matters that are the city running, as well as matters related to the global epidemic. And one of my concerns is right now there's a lot of other business that's continuing to run in the city. For example, the Atlantic Road development that I think create challenges. I think it's wonderful that the city IT has created a venue like this to be able to have meetings, but there are lots that cannot attend. They may not have internet or other access. They may not understand this type of technology, and it's certainly very different from being able to walk into City Hall and participate. So I would encourage the city councilors to think about whether we should be focusing just on emergency related and keeping the city running. I have expressed whether this is a government state related matter to Senator Bruce Tarr's office. He indicated to me, after consultation with the mayor, that there is no restrictions in terms of what has to be carried forward for business. And so he encouraged me to come back to the city council and said it's in their jurisdiction to decide what matters should be on focus right now. Moving along, I also wanted to comment broadly on the Atlantic Road development that's going to come in front of the City Council. I've emailed the City Council on a couple of occasions. I represent a group and we have concerns about this, especially consider the ability to do on-site visits and to see the property and to be able to have community participation. I have asked our Ward 1 councilor to hold a meeting. He's reached out and I still await an opportunity for us to be able to meet with him on this. So Scott, if you're here or listening, we are still waiting and interested to connect with you. And finally, also with regard to the recent planning group meeting that was forwarded over to the City Council to review these matters, we do have a number of points that we will be following up with the planning group that we feel are not accurate. For example, the representation that abutters in the area actually support this project, that's not true, and a number of other issues. And so we will be following up directly with them, as well as CCing the City Council members so that they're aware of our position as well. So thank you for your time. I hope everyone stays safe and thank you for your service.
Jim, thank you very much. Councilor Memhard is on this evening and he did acknowledge that he heard your request and gave you a thumbs up. So we'll get back to you with some more information shortly. So thanks again. Is there anybody else that would like to speak under oral communications? Seeing none. I'm just going to state for the record also that we have 25 panelists that are on the screen with us this evening, and we have 19 attendees that are either listening by telephone or on a device watching this. So that's just, I want to get that in the record. So that being said, Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
Next order of business is the first presentation update from General Counsel regarding the new law granting relief from the requirements of special permit and variance applications.
Thank you. Mr. Payson,
Mr. President,
how are you?
members of the City Council, well, thank you. I hope everyone's well too. So I will be relatively brief and then I'm happy to take questions. But on April 3rd, as many of you already know, the governor signed Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020 into law. The law, as its title states, is designed to address challenges faced by municipalities and state authorities resulting from COVID-19. While there are 19 sections in this new law, Section 17 pertains to permits and permit granting authorities, and I'd like to go through that section tonight briefly.
Yes, sir.
So Section 17 deals with permits, variances, special permits, licenses, amendments, extensions, or other approvals issued by a permit granting authority. And in the statute, these are generally referred to as permits, and I'll refer to them as such during my remarks. So Section 17 in relevant part states that during the governor's March 10th, 2020 declaration of state emergency, number one, the time period in which a permit granting authority is required to act on a permit by law is suspended as of March 10th, 2020. But that time period shall resume 45 days after the termination of the state of emergency. Number two, a permit in effect or existence as of March 10th, 2020 shall not lapse or expire, but the expiration date of the permit shall toll or stop during the state of emergency. Number three, there is no constructive approval or denial of permits during this emergency time due to a failure of the permit granting authority to act within the legally required time. But the permit granting authority must act regardless within 45 days after the conclusion of the emergency. The chair of a permit granting authority may, without the presence of a quorum to vote on the matter, schedule or reschedule on one or more occasions the hearing or decision deadlines on a permit application, but the rescheduled date or deadline cannot be more than 45 days after the termination of the state of emergency. If the chair does schedule or reschedule a hearing or decision deadline, he must provide written notice of it to the applicant at the applicant's address and to the general public by posting electronically on the website of the city. A hearing on a pending application for a permit opened by a permit granting authority before March 10th, 2020. And as an aside, I don't think we have any of these, but I'll get to that in a few minutes. Which has not been concluded as of March 10th, 2020, or has been continued by the permit granting authority as of March 10th, 2020, is automatically tolled or stopped and continued to the first hearing date of the permit granting authority following the termination of the state of emergency. So in essence, that section provides for applications for permits in which the hearing was opened before March 10th. And as I said, I don't think we have any of these, but I'll get to that in a minute. Last three bullets here. Permit granting authorities, subject to applicable notice and hearing requirements, may still revoke or modify a permit if that permit or the law or regulation under which the permit was issued authorizes its modification or revocation. Permit granting authorities may still conduct meetings and public hearings remotely during the state of emergency. And finally, a permit granting authority may still issue decisions on permit applications as long as a duly held public hearing or meeting has been held remotely. So it's my understanding that currently there are 4 permit applications that have been filed with the clerk or the council. 105 Wingersheek, 99A Essex Ave, 163 Atlantic Road, and is it Folly Point Road or Foley Point Road? Folly?
Yeah.
It appears from the information that I received from the clerk office that the timing of these 4 applications for permits may be continued until the conclusion of the emergency, as long as they're acted on, not just heard, within 45 days after the conclusion of the state of emergency. So this rule goes for any new permit applications that are filed from now until the end of the emergency time period. And again, referring back to what I said earlier, the March 10th threshold deadline, since these applications were not heard or not filed before March 10th, they can be continued to sometime in that 45 days and not just to the next hearing date after the emergency ends. So ultimately, it's up to the city council as to whether you want to proceed with public hearings on permits or not. You know, the law allows you to do that, and it doesn't require you to do so. It is discretionary. So with that, I'll just conclude my quick remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks.
Yes, do we have any councilor questions? Councilor Cox?
Thank you, Attorney Payson, for that presentation. It is my recommendation that we stop doing any public hearings during this time period and take advantage of the 45 days after the emergency, and also propose that we do it in a special city council meeting where we just hear the special city council permits. So we know that we can address it in that 45 days. I know Joanne's got to advertise for the public hearing and all that stuff, but I think in an attempt to take this very seriously and listen to what the public has to say, we should adopt this as part of our process right now, and you know, move forward with a possible one item, not really a one item agenda, but a one subject agenda to address the things that we've missed. So.
Thank you, Councilor Cox. Councilor Holmgren?
I completely agree with Councilor Cox. Anything that we can do to make sure that we just focus on what we absolutely need to focus on, and to give the public the opportunity to focus on these special council permit applications that are coming down the pike after this emergency declaration is lifted is I believe, what we should do in the spirit of full transparency and full community Patient.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Gilman.
So I agree with the spirit of everything that you've said. There's one thing that I was thinking of which would be helpful, and that would be to conduct the first meeting at P&D remotely using Zoom for each of these upcoming 3. And the reason why I think that that is helpful is because we know with these city council permits, we're going to have to require a site visit, and then we're going to have to come back to P&D. And what and frankly, I am totally not supportive of having any site visit with the social distancing health matters right now, because typically we average 15 to 45 people on these site visits. And I think that we would definitely be in jeopardy of people getting within the 6 feet limit. But my thought of having the initial information meeting is just to keep these moving. The first meetings are basically very factual about slides and details and plans. And I find it to be very helpful to see this material on our screens. In fact, it's even more helpful to allow the public to see it on these screens, because typically they sit in the back of our conference room on the first floor, and the material is really shown very clearly to the council, the 3 of us at the table, and the folks in the back really don't get to see it. So if we sequentially heard each one of these in P&D, at least the info meeting, and then we paused for the site visits after the emergency order ended. And that would mean that we were a little bit more in a safe place to have the site visits. Then we could come back to P&D to answer the questions and to talk about what we observed, and we could do our votes. And then to Councilor Cox and Councilor Holgram's suggestion, having a special meeting with the full council to go through those various special council permit votes, you know, and then hear it all together would be helpful to have an extra meeting. And that way we wouldn't be getting behind, but we would be doing it in a very transparent and open way. So that's my suggestion. So I guess my biggest question is, does everyone agree that site visits is something that we don't want to have at all until we feel comfortable that, you know, we can be close to each other? And what are your thoughts all about at least having the initial information meeting at P&D to get that meeting off the ground?
So why don't we have a discussion on the site visits real quick? And then later on in the meeting, we're going to have another item on our agenda for other business. And it's going to be a discussion on standing committees and city clerk priorities.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we save what we're going to do in our standing committees till that point, and we can have this discussion. But the site visits, I think, are part of what we're trying to get to. You know, I talked to Chip earlier this week, and Val and I had a quick conversation. So that's why this was brought forward to us today, so we could figure out what we feel comfortable doing moving forward as a council. So without having this on the agenda, we really can't have this discussion. So, you know, Chip had his presentation, and we had to segue into this. Hold on, Jamie. I see you got your hand up. Jen, do you have your hand up for a second? Do you have another question?
No, if we're going to be discussing what we're doing in standing
The
committees.
committees. Yeah, in a little bit. Okay, Great. Councilor O'Hara.
I want to support the idea of delaying the special permits as well as the site visits. I think it's important. Gilman has indicated that the site visits typically have a large number of participants, and the social distancing and the communications would be almost impossible to have a successful site visit. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Councilor Cox.
Barry, there's a little button on your screen that if you
Yeah,
want to raise your hand.
I recognized him earlier. I just hadn't had a chance to. Barry, I'll get you next, Barry. I'm sorry.
It's what happens when you're the senior citizen of the crowd.
I just want to voice my opinion that first of all, you don't have to go back to P&D after a site visit. You can make the motions prior to the site visit. We do it a lot when I was on P&D because it's an information gathering point at best and not something that is going to change a decision. Or if it does, it can be rectified at the city council meeting, the public hearing. So I don't think we need to add steps into anything that are not necessary in a crunch time frame. Obviously, we're not going to be doing site visits until we are fully capable of doing site visits, and that would be after the state of emergency is lifted, and that being 45 days from that point. So I understand what you're saying, Councilor Gilman, in regards to the process, but again, we don't need to add steps that are unnecessary to it. And then we'll have further discussion later. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Cox. Councilor Pat.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. My point and sort of question is more about timing and scheduling, and knowing that as we hopefully come out of this, we have, B&F or budgeting issues for the city are critical. And in P&D, we have a number of applications in, et cetera. And my question is, do we go to a schedule that ends up being, say, P&D meeting every week versus, every other week? And do we do city council meetings that are, again, as has been suggested, maybe we have a regular meeting and then an opposite week, a second week is just for these public hearings on applications, or what the process would be. So I'm just concerned that, all of a sudden when this timing of returning, quote unquote, to normal comes, that we're going to, the 45-day constraints and other constraints are going to become very important to getting things, in order, publicized so that the public can, participate in the process in a transparent way.
Thank you, Councilor. Yes, we're definitely going to have to play catch up after this. I've been reaching out to individual councilors over the past couple of weeks, trying to have this discussion. And I think that we're probably, for these special council permits that are going to be coming forward, we're probably going to have a one-item agenda for one of these special council permits. So that way we can vet it properly, and then we'll have one the next week, and then we'll have the next, so they'll be staggered. But we'll definitely have to play catch up with O&A, with P&D, and with B&F, and also some of these special council permits moving forward. So that's a yes question, a yes answer to that question. Chip.
Thank you. Just keep in mind, and Councilor Gilman and I spoke about this a few days ago, and she asked the question, what happens if this goes, God forbid, to September or December? The City Council, you have within your purview the ability to reassess. And the governor, I'm sure, if we ended up at some point in June, would probably likely reassess legislatively some of these things. So I think, it seems that the council is looking at a prudent course right now, which I think is probably a good idea, but you always have the right to reassess as you move down the road.
Thank you, Chip. Councilor McCarthy.
I'd just like to echo what's been said as far as site visits and public hearings. I think the public has a right to be seen and heard, and I think we ought to go with the 45 days after the state of disaster is over.
Thank you, Councilor. Are there any more questions, discussion? All right, Councilor Gilman.
So one of my questions is the process of continuation. So I understand through the state statute that it gives Council President LeBlanc the jurisdiction to continue. So is the process that you just continue every 2 weeks to continue the public hearing, to open it, to keep it open, and then to continue it until such time that we determine when that emergency order is going to end, and then you come up with the date of that particular public hearing, and you notice the applicant in writing and put it on the city website? Is that the process, Chip, for just incorporating this this logic into reality, I guess, is my question.
So I think my understanding, Counselor, is that of the 3 or 4, a few of them have had public hearings opened. So I think you could do a couple things. I think the next time it comes before the body that opened the hearing, you could continue the matter, or for another 2 weeks and keep continuing it down the road. Or I think the next time it comes open, I think the council president could notice the applicant at that time that the matter will be continued until the end of the state of emergency, and at that point the applicant will be notified with a date certain when the matter will be taken up.
Thank you, Chip. Hold on, Val. Is it a follow-up question to this?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's for Chip. Like, do we need to move to adopt this policy as a council, and just notice everybody that has a special city council permit in front of us and just do it once and be done with it, instead of playing these games every 2 weeks with continuing hearings? I mean, to me, it seems like we need to adopt and then notice.
Well, I don't think you need to adopt. The statute is the law, and the statute provides really for the chair, in this case the council president, to reschedule 1 or more times down the road. So and without a quorum. It's up to the president if he'd like to have the council vote on this in an adoption sort of manner, but the statute doesn't require any kind of an adoption. And yes, while you do have options, it seems more logical, instead of continuing every 2 weeks, to just notice the applicant, and you're going to have to put that on the website. And I think Joanne or James and I have had initial conversations of where that might go on the website. But you'd have to put public notice up on that particular application, basically what you notice the applicant, which is that, after the conclusion of this, well within the 45 days required by law, a date will be set, a date certain, in which the matter will be taken up and acted on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Blank, if I may, I would appreciate if you would allow us the opportunity to vote on it, and then notice, then also putting it on the website. It's just going to be cleaner and straightforward, and I think that's our best process to get it out there as soon as possible. So the neighborhoods, such as Mr. Town, who spoke earlier, can feel better about the situation and know that they're being heard, and instead of having to check in with us every 2 weeks to see what's happening. I'm one of 9, obviously, but that would be my preferred course of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. This is the whole reason we've got this on here tonight. So if everybody else feels comfortable moving forward, we can put this for a council vote on the next council meeting for adoption. So Joanne, can we put this for council vote? Because we're having the discussion now. So in 2 weeks, we can have a full council vote on to adopt this moving forward. And Councilor Cox, Councilor Gelman, or myself, or whoever wants to join in to help you draft the language for this, and Chip, we can get it in there.
Yes, we can. It will be on for April 28th.
Okay. Councilor
And
Gelman.
Joanne, you and I can work on this.
Okay, thank you, Chip.
Okay.
Councilor Gelman.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm still not unclear about is, are we together, and do you not want to start any conversations for the first informational meeting of each special council permit? Because
Well, why don't we wait for that for committee discussion?
okay, because it
Yeah.
does kind of affect what we're discussing, but we can talk about that later on. And I very much agree that the more specific information we can give to all the abutters of all these different projects, of putting this out there kind of factually is really important, because, you know, I've been getting calls from everyone saying, when is this going to be heard and when is the public hearing? So I think once we adopt this, the more clarity we can give to the public to let them know that they don't have to keep coming back every 2 weeks and think that they might be heard. That will be a sense of calming, I think. So I'm happy that we've had this discussion, and that Chip was here to kind of lead the way, because we're navigating in some new uncharted waters right now. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Great discussion, everybody. So this will be on the next agenda for a council vote. Madam Clerk, can we have the next presentation, please?
Next presentation is by the East Gloucester Veterans School Building Committee, an update on project design and traffic study.
Thank you. Chairman Pope, are you there?
Yes, I am.
How are you? So I'm gonna hand the reins over to you. I know you said we had some slides or whatnot coming forward. We're gonna do our best ability to get everything visualized on the laptops or everybody's device this evening. If we're having technical difficulties, we're just gonna push through as much as we can of it, you know, verbally. So with that being said, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Council President and councilors. I'm joined tonight by Michelle Rogers and Brad Dorr from Dorr and Whittier, as well as Tom Ellis, who is our owner's project manager, and they've brought a presentation about the traffic study done at their veteran site, as well as the latest in design and accommodations to deal with the traffic. So at this point, I'll just hand it over to Michelle Rogers, and she will take it from here. If you could hold off with questions until the end of the presentation, that would probably be best in this format. But I think you will see on your screens the presentation. So if you're not, we'll try to figure it out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chairman.
Michelle.
Michelle.
Thank you, and thank you, Jonathan. So tonight we have two presentations for you. One, as Jonathan said, is the traffic study that we had planned to present to you, I think, a couple of weeks ago. And the other is an update on our design plans for the veteran site. So with that, I'm going to first turn this over to Faisal Hussain, who is our consultant from Niche Engineering. And he's going to walk you through the presentation of the traffic study. And you should have received today a copy of the updated traffic report as well. So hopefully the information that he presents to you today will help you manage getting through that report and make things very clear. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Faisal, and you should be able to see his presentation in just a moment.
Thank you, Michelle. Welcome, Faisal. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Mr. President, and good evening to the council members. Again, my name is Faisal Husseini. I'm a vice president at Niche Engineering and a practicing traffic engineer. So we have been on this project with Doran Whittier to prepare the traffic related studies, and I want to share the screen. Apologize. I thought I was sharing the screen, but I'm not. Okay, here we go. Okay. I assume it's visible now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So when we do traffic analyses and evaluation, we tend to collect a lot of data, and we do the analysis at various intersections that are adjacent to the site and on site. Our traffic study always consistent with MSBA requirements for what they call modules 3 and 4, and then module 3 is really in the concept or feasibility study, and then concept 4 will be during the design development of the project. So we have prepared our study, and I'm assuming a copy was distributed. This is kind of the latest version of it, and the agenda for my talk today is it involves kind of talking about the school programs, the parking, all the data collection that we do, and what we do with the data and how we project it to the future for the proposed project conditions. And at the end, we will provide some recommendations for improvements. And typically those recommendations has to do with the school site. And there are other recommendations for off-site mitigation, and those are depend on the magnitude of the changes in the construction and cost, and those will be assumed by the city. So the program is really, currently we have 233 students, and then the proposal, the future enrollments is projected at 440 for staff, support, and administration. We have a full-time equivalence of 80. The existing drop-off pickup, for the drop-off, we have 119, and pickup, we have 127. The projected pickup and drop-off, and that's the original one was the existing one, and the projected one will be drop-off for 225, pickup at 240, and we have 2 buses currently, and plus 1 minibus, which can be a shuttle for special need, and the future number of buses is 4 with 1 minibus. So we take a look at the current parking situation, and based on the existing layout of the school, you can, there is a lot on Webster Street. A lot of parents tend to park on Webster Street, which is kind of impede on the traffic flow going through that area, and then so the proposed site hopefully will show that it does improve that greatly and improve safety and operation both. The existing parking on site, we have 36 spaces right now with 2 handicap spaces. And then off-site, we have the 10 spaces on that lot on Webster Street, and includes 1 handicap space. The utilization, which is how much of the parking spaces is occupied, we measure that, and it's at 87%. So it's not fully 100% occupied. And so we still have a kind of wiggle ways to kind of, if you have a change or fluctuation in the numbers that can park there. The future parking is going to be on site. 114, where 5 of them will be handicap designated. And we have 105 on the main site and 9 on that lot on the southeast of the school. On Webster Street, we will have 6 spaces, and that basically a reduction from the original 10 that we had. This is kind of an aerial of the area. The school is here, is kind of bounded by the Route 128 off ramps, 127, and then Webster Street. What we do, traffic data collection, we collect at selected number of intersections. And in this situation, we have the intersection of 128 and Eastern Avenue, or 127, Webster and Eastern. And then we have French Street and Webster. And then also we have East Main, or Main, and Eastern Ave. So these 4 locations. And so when we we count the data in the morning between the hours of 7 to 9, and then we pick the highest hour from within those 2 hours, and then we do what we call the traffic analysis for it. In these days, we use the computer program to do those analyses and figure out what will be the level of operation at each one of them, and we designate them what we call level of service. A level of service is really, again, I always refer to it as a grade in the school. So when the students get an A, it means everything is great, working great, and then if they get F, it means we are failing. So similarly for the traffic, if the traffic is really gridlocked and a lot of delays, so we give that a level of service F. And then if the traffic is very light, like these days, everywhere we have traffic is level of service A, because everything is flowing smoothly. So we have what we call level of service for if the intersection is signalized, and we have a level of service if the intersection is unsignalized, if there is a stop control at the intersection on the side streets. So these are kind of the figure on the left. I'm not sure it will be very visible, but this represents kind of the turning movements at every intersection. So when we go there, we typically have a company that specializes in collecting data. They collect the vehicles every 15 minutes that are turning left at an intersection, going through, or turning right. And then that will be for all the approaches. We collect data for relative to pedestrian if they're crossing in that area, and also bicycles. And we will have the classification for the vehicle counts represents passenger car and trucks. So we have all that data, and we do as I said, the computer analysis and we come up with these level of service. The one on the left is for the morning peak, and then the one on the right for the evening peak. So at the intersection of the 128 off ramp and 127 in the evening is an F, and then the morning is a C. If you look at the Webster and Eastern Ave, that in the morning is C, and then in the evening is D. Similarly, at the intersection of East Main and Webster, East Main and Eastern. So it's a C in the morning and D in the afternoon. So in terms for looking up to the future, what we will do, we collect data regularly. In this situation, we utilize the Mass dot, what we call counting station. So they have counting station in various parts of the state. In this area, we have a counting station, which we refer to it as number 5091. And then we have data between 2009 and 2018. And we take the averages of that over these years, and then that will we create a growth factor, basically. How did the traffic volumes change from one year to another? And we figure out that percentage. And we apply that percentage to the traffic we count today, and we can calculate the future traffic. And that's what we call the background traffic on the roadways. That does not include it includes the existing school, but it does not include the future school. So we project that traffic to the future, and we still don't include the school in the part of the mix. And we do the analysis and figure out what the level of service in every intersection that we are including in this study. And then we measure, we can figure out the number of trips that are going to be generated by the proposed school, by the future school. And then we use the Institute of Transportation Engineers to give us those projection rates. So based on the student population, we can figure out how many vehicles are going to be generated by the school in the future. And then we distribute those volumes percentage-wise in which direction they go, based on the position of the school within the town. And then we calculate the level of service again, and then we get these results for those 4 intersections. Now, this was the first site that we use. We rely on computer simulation to give us a visual perspective of the operation of the traffic, because we had issues. Again, this is Webster Street, and then for the future condition, as you can see, we are taking all the parents pick-up drop-off off Webster Street. So that's huge improvements from an operation, as I said, and from a safety and the interaction between the general traffic and the school traffic. So we have this program. It's a very dynamic program. We put a lot of data in it, and to give us a perspective how things will work. And then if I do that, and this is in the morning peak hour. And so as you can see, people will come in, will circulate through the parking area, turn around, drop off, and leave. Now, in the difference between the morning and the afternoon is huge. Like parents in the morning, they come in, drop off, and leave. So it's really, the process goes much faster than if you have it in the afternoon. In the afternoon, parents then tend to come in early, and they park and they hang around for a while, socialize, and then when the time comes, they start leaving at that time. So it takes them more time to leave than in the morning. So this is a bus here. We have a bus so we are separating between the parents drop off and pick up, and then the bus pick up and drop off as well. So that separation also would enhance safety in operation as well. So you can see, like in the morning, again, we don't need more than just going around this loop and then dropping off and leaving. And that's, again, based on the number of pickup and drop off that are projected for the school in the future. And then these are the 2 buses that can come in. So, I mean, the purpose for the buses is to figure, this area will be adequate to address the number of buses that are needed. And so they come in, take the students, and leave. So this is in the afternoon. Basically, we start the same simulation. However, as I said, in the afternoon, it's kind of more needed space than in the morning. So this is when the parents come early and they line up for pickup. And based on the analysis, that the line will be much longer. And then, as you can see, that people are, will come in and stand in line and continue for a pickup. And there are some observation in terms of the simulation thing is the behavior of the kind of the vehicles. Sometimes some parents, I guess, they are in a rush. They try to cut through, leave the line and come back into the line like this car did. So it's just trying to simulate basically the actual human behavior in some instances. Not everybody very structured, following the rules. So a couple of them may not follow the rules. So I think the conclusion of this is that seeing that all the activities are going to be on site. We're not going to have anything on Webster Street for pickup drop off. So when we look at safety evaluation, and we collect crash data at all the intersections that are within the study area, including the crashes at Front Street, and then we calculate what we call a crash rate. That's based on the volume and the number of crashes, and then all the intersections that are in this study, except the one at Webster and Eastern Avenue, are over and above the rates that are statewide and also district-wide. So, Gloucester is within District 4 of MassDOT. In terms of mitigation, for recommendation for mitigation as it relates to the school, we're recommending to add turning 2 lanes exiting Webster onto Eastern Avenue. One go to the left and one go to the right. That would reduce the length of the queuing on Webster. To really enhance the pedestrian experience along Webster Street and Eastern Avenue by reconstructing some of the sidewalks. Some of the sidewalks are in pretty rough shape, and then reconstructing of the sidewalks can improve the enhanced safety and walkability of to the school. This kind of application fits within a program, a federal program called Safe Route to School, where municipalities or schools can get some funding for that under that program to build sidewalks and continuity. A lot of warning and advanced signing will be helpful, and designate that Webster Street is going to be a school zone, and it should be posted as a school zone, and then reach out to parents. Education, as communication and education will be very helpful. Is reaching out to parents via social media to increase safety awareness and provide some guidelines. And with that, I'll turn it back to Michelle.
Thank you, Faisal. I'm going to go right into my presentation, and then we'll take questions afterwards, if that's okay. So I first want to know if everybody can see my screen. Okay. I'm going to go on then.
Yeah, Michelle, we're not seeing anything.
Oh, you're not seeing it. Okay.
No.
Oh. Let's try again here. I'll stop and then I'll share again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. So what we want to cover today is we want to bring you up to speed on all the work that we've done since the last time we met with you. And that includes updating you on the schedule. And we have some site plan updates based on some of the information that Faisal just gave to you. And then we have exterior building design updates and some interior building design updates as well. Regarding the schedule, we're here with you tonight, and then tomorrow night we're presenting to the school committee, and then we have a school building committee presentation on the 16th. So we have a very busy week this week, and all of that is in preparation of putting together our plans for the cost estimation, which will go out on April 29th. Our goal here is to remain on schedule and meet the MSBA guidelines, the MSBA goals for submission of the schematic design. And so we have informed the MSBA that we intend to submit on time and on schedule. And we've done everything that we can to keep up to date with our consultants and with the city as well. Regarding the site plan, as Faisal has presented to you, we had a site plan which we developed with a goal of getting as many cars off the site as possible. So we had originally created the short loop for morning drop-off and a longer loop that brought you around a playground area here so that we could stack cars in the afternoon for pickup and queuing. All students will depart cars or enter cars here along the side and then enter the building into the cafeteria area. Buses have their own entrance and they would come in this area here and they would circle around, get off the bus and either enter in the middle of the school or into the front entrance here. In the morning, the students would go through the school and play on the playground because cars would not be entering this loop here. And in the afternoon, they would be staged here or within the extended learning area to get into their buses. We also developed areas for play. We had a turf field in the backyard along with a large play area for older students, some hardscape play area on the bus, so it would be doing on the bus loop, so it would be doing double duty. A smaller kindergarten play area adjacent to the bus loop and outside of the kindergarten classrooms. And then we had some hardscape play, things like foursquare, hopscotch, going along this area here. And then in the backyard, we looked at some outdoor learning centers. So that was back in February. And since then, we've improved on the site plan and met with several local officials, including the police and fire department. When we met with the fire department, they asked us to make sure that we could get a loop all the way around the building that fit their turning radiuses for fire trucks. And they have also asked us if we were to use this back area here for parking, that we make sure that a fire truck and the cars could park there as well as the fire trucks could pass that. So some of the changes that we made back here was to increase the width of the drive aisle. And in doing so, you now have overflow parking for event parking, both back around the loop here as well as along this area here. They also, as part of our development, wanted to reduce the amount of retaining walls. So originally in one of our earlier plans, we had retaining walls around here. So we've been able to slope the landscape well enough to pull back retaining walls and reduce them to this amount here. And still maintain our goal of 120 parking spaces on site. That means 6 here, 9 down here, and the remaining parking is all within this area here, with the handicap parking located very close to the front entrance. Also, as part of our traffic mitigation, we've created a turn lane here by pulling in onto the property, so those cars will arrive here and be able to pull here and enter the site this way here. So any cars that would be going past on Webster Street in the morning or in the afternoon would be able to bypass the traffic that is entering into the site. Taking a closer look at some of these areas, we are looking in the back here. We've created a half-court basketball area. This is the turf field that you see here that's slightly smaller than the gymnasium, so it's about 6,000 square feet. A large play structure for older students, swing sets, balanced by some outdoor learning centers. We have 16 spaces for overflow parking, and we can stage cars around here in the afternoon. And they would come around and go here. All of this area would be fenced and gated so that during the morning time, as well as outdoor recess, the students would be safe from any of the cars entering the parking area.
Michelle, can you use your mouse to kind of point where you're,
Oh, I'm sorry. I was pointing on the wrong screen.
all right, there you go,
I'm
that's much
sorry.
better. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. So this is the basketball hoop. Cars would be parking along this area here. Turf field and older student playground. In the front area, we're looking at a smaller playground for, a smaller playground for kindergarten students. The hardscape bus turnaround area here, which will also have painting of Foursquare and hopscotch for students. And then you have the ability to park 14 cars in overflow here and still have the access for the emergency vehicles to get past those. You can see here that this is where we've sloped the grading to remove the retaining walls that were here. And in doing so, we had to change the cars that were parked on Webster Street from being perpendicular to Webster Street to parallel. So the number of those cars went from 10 to 6. What we wanted to do was maintain things like the utility poles that were in those locations to avoid having to relocate those. And then in the front of the building, we're looking at some hardscape sidewalks that are under cover of the overhead of the building. There we go, some landscape here. So again, some sloped green areas that slope down into an outdoor learning center that is in the front of the building. This has been developed to simulate docks or piers. So you would have piers that come out like this in concrete, and some seating areas for classrooms and outdoor learning, and other benches to sit within these areas here. Imagine that you could bring an art class out into this area, have some outdoor learning spaces, raise the flag, have an outdoor ceremony within this area here. Going forward to the exterior design update, the building has been further developed since the last time you had seen it. This is the south and southeast elevations of the building. We have the gymnasium here on the second floor, cafeteria here, the main entrance, art, and the library. All of these areas are open into the public for after school use. So they're prominent out in front of the building. The academic wing, you can see you have grade levels here and the specials in the middle. There's an elevation of the front of the building, and then take to the back side of the building. We have more glass because we're facing the back area. This is an area so that you would have students within these spaces that could come out into the backyard for outdoor learning. You have your academic wings on each side. The kindergarten classrooms are larger, so they're more prominent here. And then again, media center and art on the second floor, and the gymnasium, and you see the cafeteria down below that. We started to do some renderings, so we thought we would present these to you. So what you see here is the main entrance, and that outdoor courtyard entrance area. You could have some outdoor gatherings places. You see the bus loop beyond. And again, the art and media center are more prominent. Front door, the gymnasium here, and the cafeteria here. It also have that side entrance where students be undercover during the pickup and drop off. Looking a little bit further to the south area, as you climb up Webster Street, you're looking back towards the school just a bit. And then looking back a little bit from the top, almost at the intersection of Friend Street, looking back towards the school. And you can begin to see this is where the retaining wall begins and the emergency access loop is here. And the interior design updates. So walking you through a little bit of this, I don't know if anybody has seen any of our previous presentations for interiors, but what you see here is some of our parties. So we had some playfulness, some seating, some portholes. We wanted to incorporate art. We wanted to incorporate the warmth of wood into the building. And so you begin to see those being reflected in these designs as we're beginning to develop them. Wood columns here and here. We're looking at potential artwork from local artists to be prominent within the building. We wanted a more open and comfortable environment for families when they enter the building. They would feel welcomed. So this area here is open to the administration area. The cafeteria is immediately to your right, so it's open to the for easy access for public use for after school hours. We have the playful seat and porthole here that adds some friendliness to the building as you've entered into the building. And you're connected, visually connected to what's happening above you. So you would, at the top of the stairs in a moment, you'll see the gymnasium and the Art and Media Center. This is from the top, and again, visually connected to the main entrance lobby. The Media Center is here on your left. And again, we're incorporating the playfulness of portholes, which not only brings in that nautical feel, but allows you, as you're walking down the hallway, no matter how tall or small you are, you have a peekaboo into the Media Center. And behind that area here would be this seat, kind of a seating arrangement that you'll see in just a moment, where children can gather independently or with a friend, still be under the observation of adults, but have an area where they can sit by themselves to read a book, similar to what you're seeing here. The railing systems will be of metal and wood in this area here. And as you're walking down the hallway, the idea is to always be connected to the main lobby. In the cafeteria, which was on the immediately adjacent to the main entrance, what we have here is the ceiling here, which has been designed acoustically to help separate different spaces within the cafeteria. And then also to bring in the idea of a sunset stretching out into these different areas. We have quiet cafes, so students can choose a different kind of lunch area. These are for small groups or students who might be needed a different acoustical environment than a busy lunchroom. But they're, again, visual connection where this is all glass. Visually connecting the cafeteria to the lobby here and then through that peekaboo window as well. Also, what you see here is the tile wainscot on the walls. Again, thinking about materials, longevity, and maintenance. These would be approximately 5 feet tall and be able to easily maintained. In a kindergarten classroom, both the kindergarten classrooms as well as the general classrooms are very similar, with the exception that kindergarten classrooms are slightly larger and contain a self-contained restroom. But what you'll see is that both classrooms have the cubbies or lockers are within the classrooms for easy storage and access for students. They'll have doors on them so that you can keep things neat and tidy as well. Lots of storage for teachers. And then the classrooms themselves are broken into different teaching zones. So you would have one teaching zone here with a projector on the wall, a different teaching zone over here. This is all writable surface, different writable surfaces in other spots as well. And then what you're seeing through this window would be the small group rooms. So students could go work independently within the small group rooms or with their special education teacher and not have to leave the general classroom environment. Also incorporated within the classrooms are, again, little nooks for students to find a place to be independent or away from the larger groups, but still be under the watchful eye of their teachers. And again, in the general classrooms, very similar to the kindergarten classrooms, just slightly smaller. In the gymnasium, one of the changes that we've made probably since the last time we presented to you was that the auditorium has become part of the gymnasium. And this was an effort to allow the auditorium to have a larger ceiling and a larger group access to it. The gymnasium is large enough to be divided in half so that you have 2 teaching zones or opened up for one event. And it's also been increased in size slightly so that you could actually have spectators within the gymnasium. These would be movable or removable so that you could have a presentation as part of the auditorium as well. And in the media center, again, thinking about flexibility, movable furniture, different teaching zones. You can see our party or our photos down below, our inspirational photos. You would have different kinds of groupings within the library, views outside, different seating areas for students to grab a book and sit by themselves or would work with friends in larger groups or smaller groups. And then there's a direct connection between the library and the art room. So this is an overhead door that opens up so that from the art room, you can spill into the library. There's like a maker space within this. You can do your research in your library, and the connection between the two is very kinetic and can move back and forth. And that is our presentation.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Faisal. Do we have any counselor questions? Counselor Pat.
Yes, my question actually relates to the traffic study. So I don't know if are people sitting, are people there able to hear or whatever?
Yes, Faisal's on.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
This really all relates to sort of multiple things about the intersection of Eastern Avenue and Route 128. In your traffic study, you talked about making pedestrian improvements, and I realize that in today's school systems, we don't have a lot of kids that are necessarily walking to school. However, the intersection of Eastern Avenue 128, the traffic lights there do not have pedestrian crossing restrictions for the on or off ramps. In order to get to the buttons and have lights that actually allow for crossing, you have to cross across the on or off ramps to get to them. I think that needs to be addressed. And I would ask that the school, and I will probably ask in the request to the mayor, that we ask our state delegation, our representative and senator to get with District 4 of Mass DOT and immediately study what can be done to add pedestrian crossing signage there, and then to be able to implement it if that can be done during construction time. And then what relates to that is that the DOT, Mass DOT is in the process of renumbering all the highways, and there will be some renumberings coming up to that. And I don't know if it's possible or appropriate that signage that would include, something about the school being there could be included in this new sign program, which is, taking place over the next year plus. And thirdly, and Councilor Memhart's been aware of this, and Councilor McCarthy, while he was police chief, there's an effort to reduce the truck traffic coming off of 128 downtown. And even though it's really set by GPS is what drives it, we're working with the state to make some improvements and additional signage to get the truck traffic directed down 128 to down to East Main Street. And I think that as we put this whole plan forth, that we need to include all that information, not maybe within the traffic study or not, but within the traffic plan. And we need to get some assistance from the state to improve the pedestrian crossings on Eastern Avenue. There have not been in the time period of your study any pedestrian accidents on any of the locations, but at that location about 10 years ago there was a pedestrian fatality.
Yep, I agree with you, Councilor, 100%. Definitely reaching out to MassDOT will be a great first step to start the dialogue and discussion. And then MassDOT District 4 can tell you what, if they have any plans for that intersection. In many cases, they will have probably ongoing studies. I'm not sure if the intersection is owned by MassDOT or by the city. If it's owned by MassDOT, definitely they will take action, and then they will do some improvements. And you are 100% right about the exit numbering system is changing throughout the state of Massachusetts. And then there will be some signage in that area to kind of lead to that. The other location, actually, I probably want to take a look at is East Main and Eastern Avenue. As you know, that area is an open field of pavement, and there's a lot of potential to improve that if you want to, kind of do something with it along the kind of complete streets approach, where you can provide for bicycle accommodation, pedestrian, and also vehicles can have adequate, placed travel path, basically. There's a lot of space there. And even, we kind of, part of the option, if you were to do a study there, part of the option will be to look at a roundabout approach. And I don't know how is that being perceived, because in many areas of the state, roundabouts has been really well received because they can handle more traffic than a signalized intersection, and they're safer for pedestrians to cross than really a signalized intersection. That's sometimes it's pretty wide to cross because it takes a lot of time to go through a signalized intersection. And driver behavior have proven that people tend to drive faster if they have a green light than if they are approaching a roundabout, because it has that deflection and slowdown characteristics. Basically, it helps vehicle to slow down automatically. So,
Thank you, Faisal. Councilor Holmgren.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Rogers, and thank you, Mr. Husseini. This answered a lot of my questions and concerns. I can tell that you have taken a lot of the feedback from the community as well as the council and the school committee into consideration in both your design of the building and the traffic study. I do have a question, and I think it's probably more for the school committee, but I want to know how we're going to incentivize parents to put their kids on the bus. And I love the bus turnaround. I think the traffic turnaround is great. And I am a West Parish parent. And again, we've taken lessons learned from that building and applied it here, I think. But I'm wondering if there is any way we can consider removing the bus fee for kids who live within a mile or two of the school. For some parents, $100 a year is too much money. And we're asking people to pay more in this debt exclusion for a school. So I would hope that we can look for a way to compromise, at least in that way, as we move forward with this.
So Councilor Holmgren, your question is to remove the bus fee?
Yeah.
Thank you. So anybody in the school committee would like to take a stab at that?
Sure. We can take that up. It's like everything else. It's money. And we do have a policy in place that basically says that any student that has to walk on what is unsafe roads, the bus fee is waived. And currently, all of the students on the other side of 128, on the Harrison Avenue side, those bus fees are waived. Now, we can look at, we've started to look at designating areas. Right now, the policy basically just is vague and it needs to be tightened up. But I'd be happy to get rid of bus fees. I'd be happy to get rid of athletic fees. I don't think they're you know, they were put in place back 10, 12 years ago, and when things were very, very tight. And I don't think they're equitable. I don't think that we should have them, but it's up to the school committee. And we're going into budget, and let's see where that goes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Pope. Just for the record, we also have Mayor Taken with us today. She sits on the school committee, not only the administration, but the school committee. We have our superintendent, Richard Sapphire is also with us. And then we have school committee member Joel Favazza is also with us for the presentation this evening. So just wanted to recognize you guys. So thank you guys. Next, Councilor Cox, you have a question?
Oh, sure. Pick me after he just says something about the budget.
Sorry.
So, Jonathan, while you're up front with the presentation here with the questions, have you considered doing a no right turn during drop off and pickup like you did with West Parish? So this way it would discourage people from going down Friend Street. I know that's a big contender with this neighborhood, is the fear of people rushing back and forth on Friend Street, which allows for parking, and it's a very narrow road as it is. And then my other question for you is also, we currently have school zone signs and flashing signs near St. Anne's for when it was a school zone, which we don't necessarily need there any longer. I know the equipment is probably way too old to reappropriate, but is it a consideration of having those flashing signs like we had at St. Anne's when that was operational? Either way, put a request into the mayor to have those school zone signs and those lights removed from downtown and reused there if possible.
So the first question about the no right turn coming out of the parking lot for parents pick up and drop off, we certainly can consider that. We also, it was mentioned that we're looking at trying to perhaps eliminate parking on Webster Street, on that section between Eastern Avenue and the access point, and then create a third lane so that when you did pull out and were coming down Webster Street and wanted to turn onto Eastern Avenue, you'd have a left turn and a right turn lane, which would help also. So everything will be considered. I mean, those are city decisions. We'd have to request that from the city, and they'd have to approve that. As far as the signage goes, right now, if everything goes forward, Veteran School will be torn down, and those students will have to be housed someplace else. And one would think the most likely place is St. Anne's. So we may not want to move those signs right away. But signage is, once again, very important. And I know when we, at West Parish, when we were able to get the much brighter, nicer ones that light up and really catch your eye along Essex Avenue. So of course we'll proceed with trying to get all the signage we can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Thank you, Jonathan. Councilor Memhard.
I had one, again, thank you for the presentations. You've done a lot of work on these. I actually had a call from a concerned constituent today about the high volume of commercial tractor trailer truck traffic on that little section of Eastern Avenue. It seems, and Councilor O'Hara and myself, Councilor McCarthy, we're all very familiar with this, Councilor Pett as well. because it is a state highway, the Eastern Avenue section there, we don't have a lot of control over forbidding commercial tractor trailer truck traffic from traversing that, even though we can encourage them. So it is just, it's a very important and current pressing issue. It's only going to get significantly worse if we're not able to do our very best to make sure that 57-foot tractor trailer truck rigs bound for Maricold and Gorton's don't traverse this section of street that will be a main access for this new school. It's really just an observation that I want to be on the record, since I did have a constituent call about this problem today. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Councilor Memhard. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes, this is for the engineer. I was watching, we didn't get the traffic plan till late today, so I just saw it once when you showed it during your presentation. When the cars were coming and going in the morning and coming and going in the afternoon, your presentation showed parents, but they didn't take into consideration, or it didn't show on your video, any of the employees coming and going. All the employee spaces were empty. And from past experience, I know that a lot of employees leave at the same time of day as the students. How would that factor into the traffic flow in the queue? Thank you.
It does show in some activities of by the teachers who leave at the same time, but not really the highest volume. And typically it is that this, my understanding in elementary schools, that's how we always estimate for it, is that teachers tend to come earlier in the morning, and they avoid basically the peak period when the parents start to come in. And in the afternoon, similarly to that, because they let the students go, first, and then they leave after that. No? But again, I can add, I mean, those volumes don't impact because you don't see any queuing on Webster itself. If we had like queuing on Webster, for example, and then adding that number of vehicle for the teachers, then become a critical issue. I think the critical piece in here is really the parents. There's a high volume of parents that needs to pick up at the same time. And if you watch the videos, it shows some of the people, in the parking lot. Some vehicles tend to leave at the same time, as the parents. But that can be also tweaked if that's the case. If visually would like to see more activities, we can tweak that to add more activities of people, like similar to teachers who will park there and try to leave at the same time.
So if I can interrupt you, your numbers do include anybody who would have been leaving at the peak as part of the count. It's just the visual that didn't show parking coming and going.
Right. It's only it was intended for the parents pick up drop off, and the focus was not on the the level of activities combined. Is mainly how the parents are able. We are able to accommodate them in leaving the site, at that peak period.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, in my experience, there are a lot of employees that leave at the end of school day, so I really think it should be factored in there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Councilor Holmgren.
I concur with Councilor McCarthy, and I appreciate Mr. Husseini elaborating on that a little bit, because I have been in, again, the pickup line at West Parish, and a lot of employees and teachers are also caregivers, and they have to leave at the same time because they have to go babysit or pick their own kids up from school or what have you. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gilman.
Thank you, Counselor. I have a question for Michelle and for the school committee. I just wanted to make sure that all of the playground equipment that's in the interior of this site will be allowed for use with the neighborhood after school and on weekends as well. It seems like we're being very careful about fencing it all in and keeping it contained during, you know, the bus route and all the carpool. And I just want to make sure that this all this nice equipment will be available for the community.
It will be. The fences are mainly for when school is in session. There are gates everywhere. And it's to keep cars out of that loop, away from, like in the morning, people would come and they wouldn't be able to get in that big loop like they do in the afternoon, so that kids could go out there and play in the morning. But all of the facilities will be available. They're not going to be under lock and key. They might have to go through a gate, you know, that you can open. It's not going to be, it's not at any of our schools. I mean, all of our schools, the grounds are open at all times. The other thing that needs to be said is that we're going to have, inside, we're going to have a full-size basketball court, which will be available for year-round for men's leagues or women's leagues or youth leagues. You know, there's going to be a very valuable resource for the community, and it'll be available.
Thank you.
Great,
Karen.
thank you so much.
Thank you. I just wanted to recognize there's 2 more school committee members, and I apologize for not recognizing you earlier. I just recognized the people on the panel. We have 2 attendees. We have school committee member Kathy Clancy, and we have school committee member Melissa Texera-Prince. They're both listening on, well, they're tuned in. All right. Are there any more counselor questions? Seeing none. All righty. Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, school committee. We appreciate the update, and just keep us in the loop if anything else you need from us or another presentation comes down.
Thank you for hearing us. Yep.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, can we have the next presentation, please?
The next presentation is by Heidi Riccio, Superintendent Director, Essex North Shore, regarding Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School FY21 budget presentation.
Hi, Heidi. How are you? Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for being patient. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Exciting to hear all that's happening in Gloucester. So thank you for having me this evening. And I would like to thank, obviously, City Council President LeBlanc, as well as all of the members of council. And I see Valerie Gilman, who is also on Essex North Shore's school committee, and Melissa Texera-Prince, who was our former chair, as well as Mayor Safathia Romeo-Taken. Interesting time of year, as we know, it's budget season, but also with a lot going on. So I did send the budget book to all of you as a PDF, and I'm just going to share my screen, if that's okay, with the formal presentation.
Absolutely. There you go. What's up there?
Okay. Great. Okay. All right, so some of the highlights in our budget and for this year is that we have been very successful in some competitive grants. So this is separate from our entitlement grants that we also receive, much like your school district as well. But to date, we have received over $1.6 million in competitive grants. And we are very fortunate to be able to do that. That also defrays some of our budgetary concerns that we have, and allows us to expand access to career and technical education for those students that were not able to get in due to our wait list. We have also included the partnership program. Gloucester was our first pilot program last year. Those 7 students, we are happy to report, will be graduating from that program, which is the Construction and Craft Laborers Program. That funding came from a private donation from the Burns family, but also some grant funding as well. And we're excited to be able to continue that. We also received a competitive grant that expanded into Peabody and Salem. And we are currently writing another grant to expand further into Beverly, which are 4 of our cities within our sending communities. In addition to that, however, that funding will also benefit Gloucester. We are seeking for a partnership for additional programs for Gloucester. So currently we have construction and craft laborers, but we're looking at a couple other programs that Gloucester doesn't currently offer in their career and tech ed programs, but that we have space to be able to expand access. We also have 6 companies in Gloucester, which we're happy to report, where our students are working on cooperative education as a field site. So they're getting paid on the opposite week of their academic classes. As we know, many of those students are not currently working due to the COVID-19, but we are hopeful that they'll be reemployed once all of this kind of dissipates. We have 14 students from Gloucester out of our 22 seniors that are also on cooperative education at this time. Here's a nice little picture of a Gloucester student and Melissa. Actually, this is Nick, who was a sophomore at the time, but Nick is a senior now in dental assisting. He is one of our pride and joys in the dental assisting program. He is considered a non-traditional student. So students where a program has either primarily female employment opportunities or male employment opportunities, the reverse would be what we call a non-traditional student. And he's quite successful. We anticipate him going on to a 4-year college to continue his work in the dental field. They have a dental hygiene program at UNE, and we're hoping that he's able to continue his education upon graduation there. What you see here is a graph. We're happy also to report that when we did a per pupil comparison of any of our vocational schools or our sister vocational schools across the Commonwealth, that as you see at the bottom in navy blue, that Essex North Shore is the most affordable career and technical education school in the Commonwealth. And we attribute that to our revenues as well as our competitive grant funding that we're able to receive. And we definitely go after all of the grants that we're able to do, which obviously is a benefit to our sending communities, because therefore your assessments are lower than historically at other technical schools. The preliminary assessment, as we know, we are not quite sure where the governor is going and where the budget is going, as we all can understand. But at the time of this print, which was in March, the Gloucester preliminary assessment was $17,093. And this is just another chart that you can see, and I believe it's included in your packet, but it's also in the budget book. And so as you can see, we are above minimum assessment. So for all school districts in the Commonwealth, we actually have to, they give us a rate as far as what we charge or what our minimum assessment is for us to spend on our student per pupil. And as you can see in all of our communities, it is at 0. And the reason it is at 0, again, is because of the revenues and the competitive funding. And if you look over to your right, and I don't know if you can actually see that, but if you look over to your right, there's a per pupil cost percentage increase. So if you were to look at Gloucester, it's a 1% cost increase per pupil. Okay. And let's see. Oh, and I just lost the presentation. Sorry, guys. Give me one sec here. All right, so I'm gonna just put it back to full screen and unshare. Okay, you see see me? So stop share. Okay. So does everybody have a copy of the budget book that was given as a PDF
Yes.
version? Okay. So just kind of flipping through the pages, if on the after, you're going to actually see a chart that looks at kind of where our budget started. So when we started the budget process actually started at a 14.1% over FY20. As we know, that was excessive. It was kind of when we put together our initial budget, what were the projects that we had in place, as well as some of the wish lists, I guess you could say, from some of our staff. We were able to put some of those things on hold. So by the time it went through a vetting process, so there were 6 or 7 different iterations of our budget. So the final budget process ended up being 4.84% over last year's. And how we attribute that to is much like you, we have teacher negotiations. We also have an MSBA roof building project. When the campus was built in 2014 and we opened, there was no significant plan for the south side of campus, and that south side of campus is where Essex Agricultural School was housed, and there are buildings there that actually needed some work. We did a feasibility study last year, and when we completed that study, it was determined that we would demolish one of the larger buildings, but 3 of those buildings on that south side of campus would remain because they could be used not only for community use, but for additional educational spaces. And that includes Gallant Hall and the Alumni Gymnasium. So the Alumni Gymnasium, we have an MSBA roof building project that's expected to start in September that we were approved for. And then if you cut over, I'm sorry, halfway through the expenses page, as you know, and what we had talked about last year is because we are not part of a city school district, we operate much like our own municipality. So we have our own dump trucks, our own rack body trucks, we have our own plows. So our staff does all of the plowing. We act as our own DPW, and we also have many farm buildings and farm animals. So we have an entire farm crew that can also add to our budget. In fact, we had 11 lambs over the last week that were born, and they're beautiful. I don't know if you've seen them on our social media page. They're gorgeous. But with that comes a cost. And we do work very closely with our communities. For example, we have breweries that actually give us their waste from their hops and barley, and we're able to actually feed our animals with that, and they donate that to us. So there's definitely different cost factors that we try to play into effect of any donations that we can receive in order to offset those costs. But that is an added expense that a traditional school system doesn't necessarily have to look at or have to budget for or plan for. So at this time, I would just like to open it up to to all of you for questions that we can answer, because I know that this is a unique situation. I didn't want to keep the presentation too long.
All righty, thank you, Heidi. Do we have any councilor questions? Councilor Gilman.
Thank you so much, Heidi. I'm just so proud of everything that you're leading at the tech. So thank you. Can you share with us just a couple of your thoughts on what areas our students in Gloucester are really focused on? I know that there are a couple of areas of curriculum that they're into. It's kind of just an interesting, it's kind of fun for us to know what our students are doing.
Absolutely. So at the back of your budget book there, every community actually will have each program listed and how many students and where they are. So if you look at that page, we have approximately 98 students from Gloucester that are enrolled at our school. That does not include the 7 partnership students that are currently enrolled in the construction and craft laborers program. But it appears that health assisting and dental assisting are the 2 most popular programs for our Gloucester students. And those are high demand programs. So our students are actually in cooperative education sites at halfway through their junior year and then into their senior year. And primarily those 2 programs are what we call a 2 or 4-year college bound program. And so yes, they can receive employment upon graduation from high school, but what a lot of kids do is continue to work in that field as they go to college in order to improve what their employability abilities are from a financial aspect. So they can be a dental assistant, but in order to be a dental hygienist, they will need additional schooling. So they'll need another 2 years at a community college. And then some students do choose to go on to be dentists. It just really depends on their personal, preference. Some kids will start out as a dental hygienist and then realize they want to pursue more education. But by having the certifications in high school, it really allows them to gain employment while they're going to school and earning money that also offsets. And many of our co-op employers will actually pay for some of the coursework that our kids are actually taking at college.
Thank you. Are there any more councilor questions? Seeing none. Heidi, thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
We appreciate what you do, and anytime you feel like you want to drop in and give us an update, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. I tried to get my beach background pictures in the background, but the light's shining through. I live in Salisbury on the other side. It's probably a short boat ride, but it takes a little bit. But I was just in Gloucester the other day, and I'm happy to come down to that area and visit at any time. And I thank you all for really, bringing your kids to us and supporting us. And really supporting the partnership, because some of those kids, just to note, they may not have graduated, and I think Rich can probably attest. There's some kids that are struggling academically, and we're providing those supports for them to make sure that they graduate. And some of them, don't always have the best financial situation. And we really believe that we're able to give them those skills in order to get into, as a laborer, into the union and really have a living wage. So I thank you for supporting both programs, not only the day programs, but also the partnership programs.
Thank you. We appreciate what you do. Like I said, you're more than welcome anytime you want to come hang out with us for a night. We're always looking for people in the audience. This is a little different, but you're more than welcome to come back.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again. Have a good evening, Heidi. We appreciate it.
Bye now.
Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
The next order of business is the consent agenda and unanimous consent calendar.
Thank you. Are there any counselors that would like to pull any matters off the consent agenda? Councilor Cox.
Hi. Item number 3 under approval of minutes from previous council and standing committee meetings.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? Councilor Cox, would you like to explain, please?
Yes. Councilor McCarthy actually brought it to my attention that the minutes were a little bit inaccurate, and that was my fault after approving them. The very first motion said it was made by me and seconded by Scott, and then after that it reverted back to Councilor Memhard making the motion and Councilor McCarthy doing the second. So I'm not sure what happened there, but all motions were made by me and seconded by Councilor Memhard. Not that it, breaks anything, but just wanted to bring that out to everybody's attention. Thank you, Councilor McCarthy.
Thank you.
Do you want a motion to amend it so I can correct it?
Yes, please, sorry. Motion to amend.
Do we have a
Second.
second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Cox,
Yes, sorry, I couldn't get it unmuted.
Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holgram,
Yes.
Counselor Blank,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor Nolan's absent, Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
and Counselor Pat.
Yes.
The motion to amend the Budget and Finance minutes of April 9th, 2020 passes on a vote of 8 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 absent.
Thank you, Counselor Cox. Is there anybody else that'd like to pull anything? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Counselor Cox,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holgram,
Yes.
Counselor Blank,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
and Counselor Pat.
Yes.
The City Council motion to accept the consent agenda as amended passes on a vote of 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent.
Thank you, councilors. Next, we have the consent agenda. Is there anybody who'd like to pull any item off the consent agenda?
My consent agenda?
It's the unionist consent agenda.
Oh, the unanimous.
Unionist and consent calendar, I'm
Yeah, yeah.
sorry.
Yes. Is there anybody who would like to pull anything off the unanimous consent agenda? Seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept it.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Counselor Cox,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holgram,
Yes.
Counselor Blank,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
and Counselor Pat.
Yes.
City Council motion to accept the unanimous consent calendar passes on a vote of 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can we have next order of business, please?
Next order of business is the Budget and Finance Standing Committee report of April 9th.
Councilor Cox.
Hello, everybody. Before you is a unanimous consent agenda for the Budget and Finance meeting. If anybody has any questions or would like to pull anything off of that before we vote, I am certainly here for questions.
Is there anybody that'd like to pull anything off? Councilor Cox.
Okay. Budget and Finance recommends the approval of the unanimous consent agenda, and I so move.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Counselor Cox,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holgram,
Yes.
Counselor Blank,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
and Counselor Pat.
Yes.
The City Council motion to approve the Budget and Finance unanimous consent agenda passes on a vote of 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent.
Thank you, councilors. Councilor Cox.
The next item on the agenda is the election of the city auditor pursuant to City Charter Section 2-7A. Budget and Finance voted unanimously in favor to recommend City Council pursuant to City Charter Section 2-7A concerning the election of the city auditor-elect Kenny Costa as the city auditor for the term of April 2020 to April of 2022, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, there in the packet was a list of goals from the previous 2 years and the responses to those goals, which were all attained, and a new set of goals that I will be working with, the Budget and Finance Committee will be working with Kenny Costa on over the next 2 years.
Thank you.
I highly recommend Kenny Costa as the city auditor. I've been working with him for almost 10 years now, and nothing but professionalism and really, really positive attitude out of him. So I appreciate all of his hard work, what he's been able to attain for the office as far as staffing, the quality of the staff, and the quality of the work that's being put out by that office. So I hope everybody will support me in reappointing Kenny Costa as the city auditor.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there any other counselor who'd like to add anything? Question?
I'd just like to endorse what Councilor Cox just said. Kenny, thank you.
Counselor O'Hara.
Likewise, I want to thank Kenny for his honesty and total transparency on any questions that I've put forth to him, and I highly recommend that we approve him. Thank you very much.
Counselor Holmgren.
I would like to echo everything that's been said. I enthusiastically support Kenny's reappointment, and I am grateful for everything he has done.
Counselor Gilman.
Ken, you are just such a professional with so much energy, and you're extraordinarily service oriented in everything that you do, and you're very appreciated from the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Anybody else? Counselor McCarthy.
Just want to say the same thing that everybody else just said, Kenny. And it's easier working with you from this side than my previous job.
Counselor Pat.
Yes, again, don't have the previous experience on either side, but so far I can just echo what everyone else has said. Thank you for your dedication and work here to the city. And I enthusiastically also endorse the appointment.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cox.
I know that we've been in this meeting for almost 2 hours already, and I feel like I'm not giving Kenny the time to discuss everything as thoroughly as I wish I could in a regular setting, but he really has, year after year, set goals, met each one of them, exceeded them, and as this is not my first term as chair of budget and finance, working with him over the years and watching him grow, which means we all grow because he's a really good teacher as well. So if you'll allow it to let him say a few words, I would appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't think there's enough words to express Kenny being with us, so I'm supporting this 100%. I echo the rest of the council, and if we could sign you up for a 10-year term, Kenny, sign on the dotted line, pal. So
let's do it.
Why don't we take our vote first, and then we'll have Kenny speak. So, Madam Clerk, can we have the roll, please?
Counselor Cox,
Yes.
Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holmgren,
Yes.
Counselor Blank,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
Yes, here, here.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
and Counselor Pat.
Yes.
The City Council motion to elect for the election of the city auditor pursuant to City Charter Section 2-7A for Kenny Costa passes on a vote of 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent.
Great, thank you, councilors. Welcome back, Kenny. Is there anything you'd like to say?
Thank you. Just will be brief. Thank you for your support. Thank you for the counselors. And I just wanted to, we have a great finance team. So it's the mayor's office with Jim, it's John in the treasurer's office, also at the school with Gary and Cody, and my office as well, the auditor's office. We're a great team. We're working well together. And I just want to thank you. Thank you for your support.
No, thank you for your support, Kenny. We appreciate what you do. Madam Mayor, is there anything you'd like to say? Okay, maybe not.
Councilor Blank, just before we finish with budget and finance, I just wanted, everybody was told today that the property tax deadline has been moved from May 1st to June 1st. Applications for exemption and deferral were also moved from April 1st to June 1st. But I encourage people to get the applications in for deferment and exemptions and as soon as possible, because our city staff is still working. So since it directly affects the budget, I just wanted to get that in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We appreciate the administration for moving that. It helps all the residents. So it's nice to see the administration working with the residents to not only fight this virus, but to extend an olive branch out to make sure that everybody's be able to do what they can do moving forward. So thank you, everyone, for doing what you do. All right, is that it for budget and finance? Yeah. All righty.
Sorry, yes.
Yes. Madam Clerk, can we have the next order of business, please?
The next order of business is the O&A Standing Committee report of April 6th.
Thank you. Sean's not here this evening. I ran the meeting last week, so I'm going to read the motion this evening. We have one item, and it's the Ordinance Administration Committee voted 3 in favor, 0 opposed, pursuant to the City Charter, Section 2-7, subsection A, concerning the election of the City Clerk, to recommend that the City Council elect Joanne M. Cenas to the City Clerk for the term of April 2020 to April 2022. And I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Jamie. It's been moved and seconded. So is there anybody that would like to say anything? All right, Councilor Gilman.
So I just wanted to comment on the volume of work that our city clerk, Joanne Cenas, has been able to handle in the clerk's office. And the elections were crazy. It was busy. The city clerk's office was understaffed, and Joanne was just a team player and did everything she could to service our customers at the counter and making sure that her whole team did similarly. And so it's just busy. There's a lot of change right now, and they continue to work really well together and trying to do what's best for, you know, being a member of essential staff right now, and it's very appreciated. So I just wanted to let Joanne know that I will be supporting this wholeheartedly, and I totally appreciate you being such a team player and working for the good of our community and our taxpayers and our city council. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Cox.
Again, working with somebody for almost 10 years, I am very glad to see you in the role that you are in. You've definitely earned it, and I look forward to working with you for another 2 years. You guys have brought the office up to a different level of standards from when I first started here on the council. So I give you kudos for all of that. You have a great staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Holmgren.
Joanne, you are the epitome of grace under pressure, and really, truly, I am so grateful for everything that you've taught me personally, and for how you conduct that very, very busy office, which is truly the face of this community. I cannot thank you enough, and I hear all the time from constituents what a marvelous job you do, you and the entire city clerk's office staff. So thank you very much. I will wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor McCarthy.
Same thing everybody else said, Joe. I'm glad I still get to work with you.
Thanks, John. Counselor Pat?
Yes, obviously I'm one of the newbies, and I really appreciate everything that Joanne and the entire staff in the office does. And having seen the fact that the office is understaffed for, whether it's a few years or whatever it is, and that you can still serve the community with a smile on your face and get compliments from the citizens is a tribute to how well you're doing in running the city clerk's office. And I will enthusiastically support this nomination.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor O'Hara.
Thank you. I just want to thank Joanne for everything she's done for the city council, for the citizens of Gloucester. She's gone through a lot with COVID-19, the primary, and I'm sure the vote in November will be challenging. So I wish her the best, Joanne, and we'll be out there supporting you. Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Memhard.
Joanne, you're just a picture of, as you said here, I think Councilor Gilman, grace under pressure, and your calm and steady hand is a wonderful example for all of us and for your office team. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And I want to echo everybody, but the thing that stands out the most to me is Joanne's coming out with a level head all the time, because I know her job can be stressful, working with her staff, working with the administration, working with 9 different personalities every single day that call her and ask her to do something for them. And not once have I ever heard a sigh or, oh, I have to do, I can't. I've never heard I can't. It's always been upbeat, and it's always been level-headed, and we always get what we have to get. So Joanne, I appreciate what you do for all of us. And I'm sure I speak for everybody, so thank you very much. And I'm going to support you 100% today too. So we have a motion and we have a second, and could I have a roll call, please?
Counselor Cox,
Of course, it's a yes.
Counselor Gilman,
Yes.
Counselor Holgram,
Yes.
Counselor LeBlanc,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Memhard,
I'll vote for you, yes.
Counselor O'Hara,
Yes.
and Counselor Pat.
I'll make it 8-0, yes.
Yeah, there you go.
City Council motion to elect the city clerk, Joanne Sinos, passes on a vote of 8 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 absent. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to continue working for the city. It's going to be about over 22 years that I've been with the city, to support the council, to work with my colleagues in the different departments, and also to work for the constituents. We had some goals, but as you know, staffing changed. I want to thank my staff. They make it all happen too. And so I just want to, thank everybody for your support.
Thank you, Joanne. We appreciate you being here too. All right, so now we got our team in place. Can we have the next order of business, please?
Next order of business is the scheduled public hearings. Public hearing 2020-010, special council permit 2020-002, Essex Avenue, number 99A, map 216, lot 126. The Gloucester zoning ordinance section 3.1.6b, building heights in excess of 35 feet. Section 2.34 parentheses 13, marine-related service, storage, or repair, limited primarily in the MI district to the commercial fishing vessels. Section 5.5, lowland requirements, Section 5.5.2, and Section 5.5.3 in the EB district.
Alrighty, so I am going to open the public hearing and continue the public hearing till 5/12/2020. Alrighty, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public hearing 2020-011, Special City Council Permit 2020-003, Atlantic Road number 163, formerly part of number 171, map 73, lot 41, a portion of former map 73, lot 26, Gloucester zoning ordinance section 1.8.3, standard to be applied, 1.10.1 parentheses A, jurisdiction of the City Council and Zoning Board of Appeals, City Council, section 2.3.1 parentheses 8, conversion to or new multifamily or apartment dwellings, 7 or more dwelling units, section 3.1.6B, building heights in excess of 35 feet, section 3.2.2, dimensional requirements for multifamily dwellings and their accessory uses other than signs, and section 5.7.5, special permit criteria in the R20 low medium density residential district.
Thank you. So I'm going to open the public hearing and going to continue it till 5/26/2020. Madam Clerk, the next item, please.
Is public hearing 2020-009, Special City Council Permit 2020-001, Wingasheet Road number 105, map 261, lot 31, Gloucester zoning ordinance section 3.1.6 parentheses B, building heights in excess of 35 feet in the R20 low medium density residential district.
Alrighty, I am going to open the public hearing and I'm going to continue this. We don't have a date. Should I just continue it to the, we have two dates, the 5/12 or 5/26? What is preference? 5/20. I'll just continue it to 5/12/2020.
The agenda says 5/26.
Alrighty, well, I'll take that back and I'll open the public hearing and continue it to 5/26/2020. Alrighty. Madam Clerk, next order of business, please.
Next order of business is motion for reconsideration. Councilor O'Hara, City Council vote of 3/24/20 regarding the construction manager at risk under Mass General Law, Chapter 149A, as a public construction alternative to the design bid build method under Mass General Law, Chapter 149A for the East Gloucester Veterans Memorial Consolidated Elementary School.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilor O'Hara.
Thank you. I want to thank the council. I don't think my change in the vote is going to have a huge impact, but I want the taxpayers and the public know with the existing conditions that we are all faced with every day, that this wasn't done blindly. If the school goes forward, I would be very happy that we do have a construction manager. My career is in construction. I know the value of having a construction manager. But also, I must look at reality with the global issues, the global pandemic that we have, 17 million people in the United States being unemployed. Thankfully, we have some relief for our taxpayers as far as making that payment. That I don't think this is going to be a high priority any longer. And beyond that, what does the school look like in 2020 going forward? We'd be naive to say that things are status quo. This is the new norm. So I just want history going forward to know that this is an issue which, again, if it does pass, which I'd be shocked under the existing conditions that this money could be spent someplace else to support this community during this unprecedented time. Thank you.
There we go. So thank you, Council O'Hara. Do you want to, would you like to put this in a motion, please? So it's a motion for reconsideration. So we have to have a motion on the floor in a second to move it forward.
I like to propose a motion that we reconsider the vote for funding the construction manager. I so move.
All righty. Do we have a second? Councilor Gilman.
For the purpose of the vote, I will second the motion for Councilor O'Hara.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion, Councilor O'Hara?
No, I thank Councilor Gilman for seconding it.
All right, so this is a standard reconsideration. For those of us that voted it's a no vote if you'd like to keep your vote. It would be a yes vote if you would like to change your vote. So this is how we're moving forward. So, Madam Clerk, can I have the roll call, please? Oh, actually, do we have any questions from the councilors? Councilor Cox.
Question or comment?
Question or comment?
The initial vote had 0 budget impact. None of this has any budget impact whatsoever to the future of the school, the future of the vote. It is only to say that you support having a construction at-risk manager in this project. So, Jamie, I don't support your reconsideration. You have every right to do it, but in my opinion, it's grandstanding and unnecessary. I vote no.
All right. Is there anybody else? Seeing none, actually, Madam Clerk, can I have the roll, please?
Councilor Cox.
No.
Councilor Gilman.
No.
Councilor Holgram.
No.
Councilor Blank.
No.
Councilor McCarthy.
No.
Councilor Memhard.
This might confuse Bob Wynot, but no.
Councilor O'Hara
Yes.
and Councilor Pat.
No.
The motion for consideration fails.
Thank you, councilors. So Councilor Memhard, every time I hear a motion to reconsider, I think of Councilor Wynot too. All righty, Madam Clerk, can we have the next item, please? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Sorry. So the next item would have been an update from the Tourism Commission from Councilor Melissa Cox, and I don't think they've met, so.
But it's also been a while since I've had an update.
Okay.
So technically, no, I don't have an update. We met in January. Shut up, Steve. We had a very nice meeting in January where we actually had a quorum, so that was very nice. We had a presentation regarding the duck boats. So I reached out to Joe Cahill earlier today and asked her if she had any updates, and I didn't hear back from her as to, you know, what we were working on. It's kind of at a point where it doesn't really matter at this point, but we did discuss the flowers on Main Street and the tourist corridors, I guess. Generous gardeners were very nice in watering those plants for us last year because the Y teen leaders, it wasn't a significant amount of students participating in that anymore. So we looked for other options, and one of those bids that came back was about $75,000 to water seasonal plants. DPW is not
capable in manpower or equipment to water them as necessary. So we are going to try to look for new ways to beautify the city that may not involve the flowers. I know that they are widely popular, but they are also insanely expensive to purchase and then maintain. So it would be great if we could get volunteers from wherever the plants are in front of to water them. But again, as somebody that's wicked short, reaching up there with a water pail is just not going to be feasible. So we're looking into it. We've got some time to look into it at this point. I think the flower baskets, regardless of when we open for business, are out this year because of the fact that we didn't get them ordered. I don't know that nurseries will have them available even if we were able to get them and have them watered. So there are a few things that we are working on with the Tourism Commission. You know, everything's kind of been delayed now, but we hope to get up and running soon. We finally got enough people to have a quorum for a meeting, and then, you know, we met in January, as I said, and then haven't met since. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We have some other business that we need to take care of too tonight before we hang up the meeting. So this other business is the discussion that we had at the beginning of the meeting with Chip having our update with the governor's relaxing of the rules. So we're going to have a discussion on our standing committee, and we're going to have a discussion on city clerk's priorities during this COVID-19 emergency order. So what I'll do is I'm just going to start off saying that I think the best way to move forward with the standing committees is for the chairs to open up the discussion with the other two members on what they feel comfortable moving forward with. I think that the chair of the committee, the vice chair, and the member will be best suited to having that discussion with them. So, I mean, we will have it here also, but I think with P&D, Val asked earlier about moving forward with the first parts of the P&D meetings for permits and stuff like that. My recommendation is, and I talked to Chip about this, that if you three feel comfortable with moving forward with an item on your agenda, then I think you guys should move forward with it. But I think you should take a vote to move forward with it. And also for P&D, or anything with any standing committee, is if there are going to be slides that are going to be presented, let's try to get the slides as early as possible, hopefully the week before, so we can put them in the packet. Because I think that some people have video capabilities and they're watching us, but for the people that don't have the video capabilities and they're going to be listening to us on the telephone or however they're going to listen to us, and we put the slides in the packet, we have enough time to put the slides in the packet, then I think they'll be viewable from people that will want to pull the packet up. So that being said, I'm just going to ask I know Sean's not here today, so I'm going to start off with Val. So if you want to chime in.
Thank you, Councillor LeBlanc. So I guess I'm a little bit confused with, you want us to bring it back to standing committee to discuss it amongst ourselves, what we want to do?
Well, I think we'll have it, we'll open it up here, but I think ultimately it will be up to the committee, the will of the committee on what they want to move forward with or not.
Okay.
Yes. And I talked to Chip, so if Chip wants to weigh in real quick while we got him on, maybe he can shed some light on that.
I think, thanks, Mr. President. I think if I understand what you're saying that it's the sense of the council that special permits or permits in general not continue through public hearing. But I think what you're suggesting is that each committee have a conversation about what business they're comfortable doing separate and apart from that. Is that kind of where you're going?
Yeah, well, I think we can open up generally to everybody, but if there's an item on the agenda that somebody on the committee doesn't feel comfortable moving forward, then I think that discussion should be brought up and voted on at the meeting. So that way we're not, pushing stuff forward that somebody's not comfortable moving forward with.
Given the current environment.
Yes, exactly.
So, may I?
Yes, well, yes.
So then, what we would do is for the next agenda for our standing committees, we'd put this matter on the agenda, even though it really hasn't been put twice on the city council agenda. Do we have the exception to have that because it's kind of a procedural question, and put it on the standing committee agenda to talk about it? Is that the will of the committee? Because I guess, so let me repeat what I said earlier then, just because I think, what is the process, Counselor, that you want us to do? Because I'm kind of, I have strong feelings on this, but I don't want to go against the will of my standing committee, if that's your wish.
Right, well, that's why I'd like to have the standing committee have the discussion at the committee level too. I mean, we can have it here. I don't have a problem having it here.
Okay.
But I think that at any point during any standing committee, that if somebody feels uncomfortable moving forward with something, then they should speak up and have a discussion. You know what I mean?
Okay. So let me just let me kind of repeat what I said earlier.
Yes.
I've had a lot of conversations with the different abutters that are involved with all of these special council permits. Not all, but mostly Atlantic and tons on Wingasheek. And Wingasheek is kind of over now because we've already done 3 meetings and we've done a site visit. So, but the feeling in the community is that they're very comfortable with the informational meeting occurring now, even during the pandemic, on the kickoff meeting, if you will, because it's people are really listening right now. They have a lot of free time. They're really enjoying the remote recordings, and I think you can get a pretty good picture on the computer. And it's basically a show and tell presentation from the applicant to us, and I just think that it's helpful to get that done proactively if we can, like one every meeting, just so we're not backed up. And then that way we're more prepared once we have the opportunity to lift the emergency order to get into the site visit, and then to be able to get back if we need to a P&D for a final discussion, and then out to the full committee. So that's my recommendation. Now, if Jen and Barry aren't comfortable with that, and we should go back and discuss it more, that's fine. This is not my decision. This is the will of our standing committee. So I'm willing to do that. But I just think that we have 3 more permits coming up, and to just kind of stop having any discussion right now of them I'm just looking at, May and June with all the budget meetings and everything else. It's just going to be so much. It's already going to be a lot of extra stuff just holding on the site visits, and then coming back to kind of, have that final discussion on what we saw at the site visit. So
right.
That's my opinion on that. On the other issues that we have in P&D, the poll petitions, I think it's pretty simple that, the abutters are noticed, they're aware of it, it's preventative stuff, and the workers are able to work safely, according to Mike Hale. And so we did do a couple of poll petition public hearings and approved those last week, and I hope the committee was comfortable with that. Both Councilor Holgram and Councilor Pat were comfortable with that. And then on the special events with the road closures, the special events committee, according to Joanne and Bill Sanborn, which I talked to before we had the Fiesta conversation, their committee had come up with a little blurb to add to all the motions right now, which is specific to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's just a blurb to put in all of the motions of any special event. And what we did with Fiesta, which I really liked, is that we gave the applicant an opportunity to put in a postponement date so we could permit it now, and they will be able to go back to talk to the mayor if it's going to be canceled or not. But if it is postponed, we've already permitted a backup date. And I think that that's a good technique, so we can at least keep that moving forward. So those are really the primary issues that I see in front of us at P&D, although there will be a land transfer that will go back at the time where the school matter is going to be getting to that next step. But we haven't heard back yet from the legislative branches and at the House and the Senate in terms of Title 97. So we're not sure what the status is of that before we get to that next step. So anyway, those are my comments right now. And I think it's pretty clear that site visits and having remote public hearings are not anything that any of us are interested in doing.
Correct. I see Councilor Cox had her hand up, but Barry's on. We're doing P&D real quick. So Barry, Councilor Pat.
Yes, just quickly. This may be a question more for Chip than anything else. If we're talking about basically putting off the new applications, other than an initial start based on waiting till the COVID-19, situation is changed, and yet we're talking about continuing with 105 Wingershik. Are we getting into any issues where any of the applicants for any of these may come back to us and say, well, yeah, but this is the way it's supposed to work during COVID-19. This is your procedure, and yet you did this for this one and you're doing it differently for someone else. Do we need to be, my question to Chip is, do we need to treat them all the same way, or do we have the leeway of proceeding with each, as we see fit as we go along?
No, Counselor, I think that you make a very good point. I think there needs to be a reasonable, rational process put in place. 105 Wingershik is further along down the pipeline than the other three. So that one is ready, I think, and Councilor Gilman, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that one's ready to go to the full council, at which time it will be postponed for a public hearing. I think what Councilor Gilman's suggesting is that there's work that can be done remotely quite easily at P&D up to the site visit, which is where it's going to stall. But the question is, do you want to do that work? Because it seems that nobody's really comfortable with doing a site visit. And I think as a threshold matter, that is a reasonable stopping point, given the fact that site visits have multiple groups of people and you've got to have social distancing. So I think that as a matter of practice is good to apply to the three and any other ones that may be coming up, starting anew through the process. But 105 Wingershik is past that and got past that before this whole thing hit. So there does need to be a process, but I think just as I outlined as what I've heard tonight, I think sounds good. And I will just add one more thing, if I may. The president made a good point. I think moving forward at the P&D level, when work's going to be done, typically when we're in the committee room and people come in and they hand slides around, I would suggest that while they do put them up on the computer, that we ask for them, require them to provide those a week before so Joanne can put those on the website. So if someone calls in, they at least could access the packet beforehand, maybe print it off, and they've got those slides. They have those slides in front of them, so they're not disadvantaged by not seeing the screen.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right.
and thank you. Thank you. That basically answers my question, but that comes to my point is that we do need to have a set procedure within the committee as to how we're proceeding going forward so that someone doesn't come back and say, how come you did this for them and you did this for us?
Right.
Right. You don't want arbitrary and capricious. That's not good.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. Hold on, Counsel. Is there anybody else that would like to chime in for this one? Counselor Cox?
I do disagree with you to a point as far as letting the committees do it. So what are you going to do? Are you, if one person disagrees to move it forward, it's just dead at committee?
No,
Or,
I think that they should take a vote. If you're at the committee and somebody feels uncomfortable moving something, I think a good way to do it is open it. But I mean, Chip, correct me if I'm wrong, but have a discussion and take a vote moving forward. That's the whole reason of this conversation is to have this conversation.
Right. I don't have a problem, I think, with what you're saying and what I think Counselor Cox is saying too. However, I don't think the grounds of I don't feel comfortable just because I don't feel comfortable would stand up.
Okay.
It's got to have, I don't feel comfortable because the ramifications of this would be X, like that's going to promote somehow a potential dangerous situation given COVID-19. I think you got to loop back to that basis as far as why you're not comfortable. There has to be a rational reason why you're not comfortable in order to stop it.
Yes.
and
exactly.
there it is. There it is. Rational.
Right.
I mean, that's part of the problem that I'm seeing is that, you know, generally we move things out of committee to the whole city council, and then the whole city council has a decision in moving things forward and not. I don't think that we should be changing our rules per committee. We should have one set of rules, such as we are, after next week, we are not, hopefully, moving forward with public hearings, site visits, you know, development type stuff, period. That's it. Like, I feel like we're getting into, what did you say, capricious and
arbitrary and capricious.
Arbitrary
Okay.
grounds where if, say it passes next week that we are not moving forward, and again, it doesn't have to go to council vote at all, but the fact of the matter is that we cannot do this by committee. We have to do it as a whole.
Right.
I disagree with, you know, picking and choosing things at committee when it's one piece of the puzzle of city council. I don't know. The budget and finance team, I don't see us saying no to anything because usually we're accepting grants or spending money on necessary things. I don't want to speak for the committee, but I kind of am, because what we do is not.
It's different.
It's completely different.
Yeah.
You know, serving a term on P&D, I just find that, you know, we need to be very clear about what we're going to move forward and what we're not. And development is a no, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else should go. It shouldn't be left to a committee.
So, Councilor Cox, this is why we're having this discussion. I wanted input from everybody. I wanted the will of the council. So, instead of one person.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah,
I'm just saying this is my argument against.
And I agree with you. I agree with it. So that's the whole purpose of this whole conversation. Yeah. I didn't want to say we're not doing it to Bell. Don't do this. I don't want to say to you, we're not putting that forward. I want to open this up to discussion. I want everybody's input, and we're going to make a decision as a team. You
Yeah.
know, that's
So
the whole
maybe
point.
instead of doing it at the committee level, when we get the consent agenda at the whole city council meeting of what's going to be moved forward, if somebody disagrees with moving one of the items forward, we discuss it during the consent agenda approval
Mhm.
and not at the committee level, because I'm not always able to attend all the committee meetings. Not that I have a vote on P&D or O&A, but you know, I'm just not able to always. So I think at the release of the consent agenda would be a smarter idea to table, and that way it's the beginning of the process.
Perfect. So this is why we open this up for discussion, because we all have different opinions and we all can come to an agreement on how we're going to move forward. Councilor Gilman?
Yeah, I just have a question for Council Cox on the agenda. You said that, and this is important to Chip's point about the arbitrary and capricious. So in the agenda that I have in front of me on Wing a Sheep, it says that the public hearing is going to be continued until April 28th. So when Councilor LeBlanc stated May 12th would be the appropriate date, you had commented that it was May 24th. I believe, or May 26th. I believe it is, because it says April, 2 weeks from tonight, which is the 28th, that May 12th would be the appropriate date for the public hearing, assuming that the emergency order will end on May 4th. And if it were to end on May 4th, which is I'm not sure if it's going to, but we can't predict it. But if it is, then we're being consistent with what this particular state statute says. And it would be the next possible date after the end of the emergency order. I would be comfortable with sticking with May 12th. I don't know where the May 26th that Councilor Cox brought up came from, because I don't see that.
In a previous agenda.
Yeah, I have it on the agenda too.
Yes, it's not on the agenda. So.
Okay.
Can I comment briefly?
Yes,
Councilor Gilman, I think that there are two baskets here. There's the May 12th requirement, and that May 12th March 12th requirement. March 10th requirement. That March 10th threshold is only for hearings only for matters that the hearing was opened before March 10th. I don't think 105 Winger Sheik's hearing was open before March 10th, was it?
I don't think so, no.
No. So that only for hearings open before March 10th, the requirement of the next hearing after the emergency is over applies. Any hearing that is opened after March 10th, you have that 45-day window. It doesn't have to sit right on that next hearing date that opens after the emergency session.
So let me just throw out why I'm not sure if I agree with you on that. And because I understand what you're saying, and I understand that Councilor LeBlanc has liberty of, on his own, postponing or continuing a public hearing. I understand that. My issue here is that for this particular applicant, they've had 3 meetings with P&D. We've had a site visit of which all of us attended, and we are now ready to move forward. So I believe it would not be fair for the applicant to have to wait additional couple of weeks because we opt to continue it because we have that right to continue it. I think we should do it as quickly after the emergency order at the next possible meeting, or else I think that we've been too liberal with our interpretation. And so I guess I'm looking at the business situation here and trying to balance that business situation with being fair and being consistent. So
that's a fairness argument. And section 17B7 states, a hearing on a pending application for a permit opened by a permit granting authority before March 10th shall be automatically tolled and continued to the first hearing date of the permit granting authority following the termination of the state of emergency. I understand your fairness argument, but that's very different from what the statute says. You guys can, it's up to you, you can schedule that for the first hearing date after the emergency ends, but you're not required to.
All right, everybody looks confused. Councilor Cox, you want to say something?
No, I'm fighting the urge to try to get Val to see that her being fair is to one applicant and not the others, that all the applications are in the same bucket as far as time frame and everything. Because they started sooner doesn't mean that they get the very first available hearing date. What we're doing is, it's still within that 45-day window. What you're doing, in my opinion, is picking this one out of the bucket and putting it before everybody else. In the order of things, it's most likely that that's going to happen naturally because they're the furthest along. But they're all in the same bucket because none of them had a hearing scheduled prior to March 10th.
Right. Okay. So let me reel this back a little bit, and let's not nitpick who's going to get a public hearing first or whatnot. We can work on that with Joanne and P&D, however we have to do it. So let's just step aside from this, and we'll get the public hearings situated when they're ready. But we're going to leave it as is right now for the dates. So that being said, is there anything else anybody would like to discuss? Councilor Holmgren?
I just want to say procedurally, I agree with Councilor Cox as far as pulling items off the consent agenda. That's all. Thank you.
So not only do we have to keep an eye on the consent agendas, we have to keep an eye on matters that have been continued. Because sometimes when it comes from a consent agenda, it goes to P&D, and then it gets continued at P&D too. So I think what we should do as standing committee chairs is share our upcoming agendas before the council, or however we can do it, matters that are continued. See what I'm saying? Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
So you're saying pull it off the consent agenda and have a discussion at full committee about it, so we can get all our opinions out and make the decision together as a group of 9.
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that, but I'm still not certain if this committee, if this city council is okay with us having the first informational meeting, because those are coming up. I mean, we have one that we should be bringing up in P&D next week for Essex Ave, because that's next on the queue. And we should be having our informational meeting next Wednesday on that particular special council permit, just to begin the process. And then we hold after that. So I guess I'm looking for clarity because we don't have time to wait till the next meeting to schedule this particular information kickoff for special council permit that's next in the queue.
Okay, so Val's question is, how is she moving forward with having the first meeting to break the ice? Is everybody comfortable having P&D?
Well, once the emergency order is lifted, then we move forward with the public hearings and getting them scheduled.
Yes.
This isn't the public hearing. This is the info sharing. Just to start.
Oh, okay.
99 hasn't come before P&D yet.
We haven't even vetted it once, and we'd like to get it started, and with slides in advance and a good presentation, we can at least finish that part and continue to do that in sequence, because then the next week we would be ready for Atlantic, and then the week after that we'd be ready for Folly Point. In that way, sequentially, we're getting kind of about 50% of our work done proactively without getting involved with site visits and public hearings, of which we all agree we want to take advantage of this emergency state statute.
You're making the assumption that, I'm sorry, you're making the assumption.
Hold on one second. Council Memhard has a question, real quick. And I'll get back to you, Melissa. Council Memhard?
Just putting it in context, one other set of projects that's going to be before us before too long are the CPA applications. And those involve site visits typically as well. We're trying to foster what we can to have business as usual in very unusual times. And we have certain situations we need to avoid as in site visits and public hearings. But we do want to encourage business as usual to the extent that we can to proceed. I don't think that the CPA stuff is as pressing as these private development projects that we're talking about, but there are organizations that are counting on their CPA project being vetted and proceeded, and that does come to budget and finance, for example.
Thank you, Councilor Holmgren.
As long as the informational meetings are properly noticed and I mean, there's got to be a social media blast or something about them. I'm very happy to share the agenda on my Facebook page. And I totally agree with putting things like slides on the city website a week in advance. I would like to keep this process going, but I want to make sure that the public is completely aware of what's going on, if that makes sense.
I think that's our main focus, Councilor, moving forward, is try to make sure everybody is aware of what's going on and it doesn't look like we're doing something behind the scenes here. That's why when Chip and I talked about having some slides, if there was any presentation, have it way in advance. So that way we can put it out there. And not only can they go onto the city's website, but also we can probably download it ourselves and share it via our social media pages and stuff like that. So, Councilor Cox.
All right, just a couple of things. Scott, CPA applications and site visits are normally in the fall, and if this conversation lasts any much longer, the pandemic is going to be over. So we don't have to worry about CPA stuff right now. Good Lord, I lost my train of thought.
Moving forward to some P&D things. That's the main discussion, because I think O&A, we can tweak things a little bit, you know. I mean, these ordinance and stuff like that, we could push them off, or there's certain things we can do. But what Val's trying to stress, I mean, and I get it because she's stressed out. All right.
Stop talking. Committee level is where we do the work directly with the applicant. Yes. I know that we often have an audience, especially in cases of high interest, such as development. And this is, again, why I'm very much supporting the fact that we put a moratorium on development type things. That being said, P&D, well, committee level is where we do the work with the applicant. We generally, in normal course of business, do not allow people to talk at committee level or ask questions or comment as to the application. That is generally saved for the public hearing. And so is the presentation at the committee level. It is to us directly. So we have a luxury right now of being able to get this information in advance and share it publicly. What if an application doesn't want to share it a week in advance because they're still working on it? I just, normal course of business is we don't usually have things until, you know, a few days before the meeting, if at all before the meeting. So I think, and we're under the assumption that people have free time. It's not necessarily the case. Right. There's a lot of people that are just exhausted from having to have the kids home 24/7, that people that might be working actually more than they ever have because of this. You know, people pulling doubles, stuff like that. Anybody in healthcare with a family, first responders, stuff like that. We're making a very wild assumption that people have more free time on their hand, and I don't agree with that.
You know what? I agree with Councillor Cox. And if this means that we need to push through, you know, and get all this stuff done in 45 days after the state of emergency is lifted, then so be it. And if in the meantime, the governor looks at the legislation again and makes different recommendations and can make it a little bit easier for everybody to participate and listen, then so much the better. But you're right, there are too many what ifs, as there are in every single other aspect of this whole pandemic. And I am a little bit nervous about some aspects of what we're trying to do here. So, yeah.
Anything that requires, or that we know, because we've all been here for a while. I mean, even the new counselors know the system. That I just really think that if we're going to do a moratorium on development, it needs to be all the way.
Okay. Councilor Pat.
Yeah, I'm just sort of echoing what Councilor Cox has said, what Councilor Holmgren has just said. Sitting on the committee, I can imagine, even though when we're normally sitting in committee, someone comes up with a presentation, they're making a presentation to the committee, and the slides, et cetera, are facing towards us. And Chairman Gilman is saying, you know, we can make this packet available. I find that, again, a lot of people don't have the access. Never mind, we would have the video and them being able to put it up. They may not have the access to get the information. And even though, as I had said earlier in the evening in our meeting, that we may have to schedule, you know, special meetings more often than one, you know, once every 2 weeks or whatever, to accomplish what we need to accomplish. I would feel much more comfortable just continuing these. I saw on the agenda the 105 Winger sheet, it said to be continued to 4/28. I don't know where the other dates, whatever came from, but my feeling would be to continue until we're able to do things in person, whether that's a site visit, whether it's a public hearing, and even the initial thing. That would just be my general feeling, that we put it all off until it can be done.
So, if I may, I'm also thinking about city staff, and particularly the planning department. They work with the planning board on getting things to us on a deadline, and considering everything that they are having to do with regard to the pandemic, I just thinking about it further, I really don't want to add anything else to their plates either.
I would just say that I did speak to Greg at length about this, and he was comfortable with the first informational meeting. So he actually thought that was a good way to use this order, but that was just his opinion. So maybe we need to put this to a vote, because I don't, you know, I mean, it seems like we are kind of all over the place, and I think in fairness, we need to move forward. It's been a long meeting.
Yeah, so I think next week with Councilor Cox, for the council vote, we're going to put on next week. We should have this discussion, continue this discussion.
But then what am I doing next week on Wednesday for P&D agenda? Am I not going to entertain Essex Ave as a informational meeting? Because that's why, by waiting for 2 weeks to have a vote, you know, I've got the applicant calling me like constantly, because they were hoping to have done this like 4 weeks ago, and they're ready.
I know, but seeing the circumstances is tough. You know, this is new territory for all of us. So for people to have that, and people to have a computer or have to go on the city's website to get slides, I know there's some people that come into the audience and they sit there and the applicant does turn things so people can see. If somebody says, I can't see, or somebody does have a question about parking or traffic or something like that, we do allow some questions. But I think that I just see it having to double down again, because we're gonna, if you end up doing the first presentation, you're gonna have to repeat yourself at some point. That's what I'm thinking. So why don't we just, my opinion, I'm just one, and that's why we're opening this up to everybody.
So why don't we make a motion then and move the motion?
I
It
agree,
seems like-
because
It
if
seems
Steve
like
has
you're gonna
no
have the vote,
power-
Steve, but we
All
should
right,
vote.
Chip, can we do this now, or? I just want to make sure we're doing this the right way. and not-
Can I just chime in that? if-
Sorry, I was,
oh,
go ahead,
I'm
Joe.
sorry. If a matter comes before council once, they're not
Once,
supposed to
right.
vote on it
So it has to be a
until the
council
next
vote.
meeting.
Right,
Can I
That's-
point of order this real quick?
Yeah.
sure.
The ultimate decision is yours anyway. So, I mean, it didn't even have to come to this discussion. So I disagree with Joanne as far as this isn't the normal course of business that it's here before us and then not. This is something that you are allowing the city council to chime in on
Mhm.
as far as a voice vote. You are
Okay,
the
I get you.
ultimate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get you. Okay. All right, so we'll hold off the first meeting, I think, because that's the consensus I'm getting from the rest of the, for P&D, correct? Hold off from the first meeting that Val wanted to entertain.
I don't agree, but I think you have to ask the rest of the committee if you want to.
Well, that's why I think we need to vote on the moratorium of
Right,
doing
and that'll-
special council meetings tonight.
We can't.
So I'll move it.
We can.
So well, it's Steve, you've asked us to help you with your decision, right? So we can probably do an informal vote.
Chip, you want to weigh in? Or
I don't
Joanne?
know that you do a vote per se. I mean, you
Right.
could ask, the president could say,
Okay.
what do you think, Counselor Gilman? You say, I don't agree.
Okay.
Counselor McCarthy, I would agree. I mean,
Right.
but again, ultimately, the statute empowers the chair without a quorum to make the determination.
Okay, so, and I want to incorporate everybody into this. This is all of us. This isn't just.
Okay, we appreciate that.
So, so Val's question is it comfortable for us moving forward for her to listen to the first presentation of a major project that's coming through?
That's correct.
Councilor McCarthy, how do you feel on this?
I'm not in favor of going forward. I think we need to have a hard line drawn that anything that the public ordinarily would have been involved with, especially something of the magnitude of these permits, that we have to put this off until they are allowed to be in attendance and heard in person.
Thank you. Councilor Cox, how do you feel?
I absolutely feel that we should not be going forward with any special city council permits that have anything to do with development, period.
Thank you. Councilor O'Hara, are you still with us?
Yeah, I agree that we should hold off on all special permits.
All righty, Councilor Holmgren?
I also agree we need to hold off on special permits at this point and allow the public full access to the process.
Councilor Pat?
Yes, I would also like to add, as we've talked about this, the reason behind all this is the COVID-19 issue.
Absolutely. Yes.
And there may be people in the neighborhoods or whatever of applications, et cetera, that people and families are suffering at this time and dealing with that. And I would rather put everything off until this time passes.
Thank you. Councilor Memhard?
I'd agree with what Councilor Peck just said and the rest of you. Yes.
Councilor Gilman?
I wish we could start but I have to go with the will of the committee. So I appreciate the process and having us had the opportunity to have this conversation because I think it was meaningful. So I will go with the vote of the committee. I have no choice, and I support the ruling of the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the COVID-19, it just makes it physically and technologically impossible for some people to attend these meetings. So that's the reason why I think we should hold off on them too, until we can get back to normal. All right. Is there anything else anybody would like to add to this? Councilor Pat? Oh, you're on mute, bud.
It just, is this on this issue or like, you know, for the mayor or whatever?
We're just discussing standing committee still.
Okay. No.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Is that wrapped up our discussion? All right. Awesome.
I hope so.
Oh, thank you, everyone. Before we exit tonight, I would like to have our rock star of an IT director, James, would like to chime in on our newly updated city website.
Hello, good evening, everyone. For the record, James Pope, Director of Information Services, and telling people to mute their microphone. Let me share my screen and I can show you very briefly the refreshed city's website that we hope to switch over to go live this Thursday. Everyone can see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I just wanted to do a very brief overview of sort of the homepage and some basic changes that have happened. Obviously, we're going to release more information for the public so to help them navigate any changes, though I don't think we're going to encounter a huge amount of issues in that regard. So this is it. This was a project that was started technically at the end of last fiscal year with some free cash combined with some other funding sources to sort of bring us to this later than we wanted, but this point we were actually going to launch right before this the first week the stay-at-home order was announced. We were supposed to launch, and we decided to remove other changes from our life and push them off a little bit. So we waited as long as we could, and we've brings us to today. It's been a big project with Vanessa Krasik in the mayor's office, Jill Cahill in community development, and actually the late comer to the project that's been invaluable is Shelly Shalino, who's actually my clerk, who's done a lot of content work for us. So obviously we've refreshed the look and feel. We've introduced some new main navigation while also kind of bringing over some familiar navigation that fortunately responds a little bit more pleasantly. The old menu used to jump around a lot and made it hard to navigate. This one's a little bit much more stable, requires a click to sort of drive down further into a department. A little bit limited on what we're going to push out as high profile news while creating spaces on subpages to sort of house that information, calendar, and some quick links down the bottom. The big thing that I want to highlight is we've moved public notices as opposed to having a long running list on the homepage to sort of, again, give us that cleaner look. We've moved them onto this public notices page, and city staff in the clerk's office will sort of be able to create this running list in chronological order of current meeting notifications. And this actually does jump into the calendar, which should be familiar to most people that have looked at our calendar before. This is actually the same layout as our old calendar. The search has been front and center, as we know that that's how most people use websites nowadays, is just searching for the topic, as opposed to going through navigation, but obviously both are available. And we're very excited. It's been a lot of work. We're very excited to get it live. It's much easier to update than our last one. So we're sort of, those of us who have been doing constant updates to the website around COVID-19, we're very excited to have this new tool for us. And again, thank you to all the city staff people that have been part of it.
Thank you, James.
No problem.
And I want to just take one brief moment back to other business and have a quick discussion on starting time for city council. Seeing that we're all at home and remote, and people aren't leaving work and driving from out of town to make it to the auditorium by 7. This is going to be a discussion and a council vote for the next council meeting to bump them up to 6 o'clock. How does everybody feel starting council remotely at 6 a.m. and then go back to normal after whatever normal is? So
6 p.m.
6 p.m., not 6 a.m.
Did I say 6 a.m.? Oh my God. Councilor McCarthy, how do you feel?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
All right, Councilor Gilman,
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Councilor Cox,
That's fine.
Councilor Memhard,
Sounds good to me, Steve. Thank you.
Councilor Pat,
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren,
Yes, indeed.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
All right, so this will be on for a council vote our next council meeting. And hopefully we don't have these 10 o'clock meetings anymore. So
Can you
okay.
remind everybody that it's 6 p.m. on not Tuesday, the Tuesday after?
We're gonna have a regularly scheduled meeting next time, but then we're gonna have a council vote for the future.
I'm
We
still
don't-
gonna need a call ahead of time.
Yeah, we will. We'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. All right.
I
Moving right
forgot it
along.
was Tuesday and went for a run tonight. So
I know, right? So we're going to do the councilors, Madam Clerk, when's the next order of business? Wait, council's request to the
That's to
mayor?
the
I'll do
mayor.
it for you.
Yeah.
Councilor Pett, we'll start on your side of the dais today.
Okay. As I had said earlier in the meeting, I'd like to ask the council to support and the school committee to support asking the administration to enlist our state representatives, Representative Ferrante and Senator Tarr, to work with Mass DOT on the Route 128 Eastern Avenue intersection, the pedestrian crossings there, the signage issue, and the truck traffic issue there. And I would like also, in putting that request in, I would like to volunteer, because I worked for so many years on most of that in Senator Tarr's office and have a good relationship with Mass DOT. I would like to volunteer that I'd be able to work with them in doing that. But I would ask that the administration very quickly get to asking the delegation to enlist Mass DOT District 4 to work on this issue.
Thank you, Councilor Pat. I'm sure Councilor Memhard would appreciate anything you can do over there. Councilor Holmgren.
I agree with Councilor Pett, and thank you for bringing that forward. And I want to thank everybody. I have seen some incredible acts of generosity and heroism these past couple of weeks. It's been hard for everyone, and I want to thank each of you, my fellow counselors, as individuals. Councilor Cox, I'm really looking forward to putting up those yard signs, supporting our high school seniors. Thank you for driving that initiative. And we're getting through this. So thank you very, very much, everyone.
We're all in this together. Councilor McCarthy.
Yes, just a little update on the program that the mayor asked the council to volunteer for last week. It's the volunteer reassurance program, reaching out and contacting seniors that are in senior housing with the Housing Authority. I know some of you have volunteered. They need an email from you if you're going to do it that says either electronically sign the confidentiality release or just send an email. You can send it to me and I can forward it, saying that you read the 3 attachments to last Thursday's email, that you understand it, and that you agree to the confidentiality. They sent the list over to me this afternoon. There are only 2 names on it presently, but their housing managers are working on getting more names, and at that time I can get those out to the councilors that volunteered. And I have one request to the mayor's office, that they look into upgrading the tablets that we're currently using to laptops. The I don't feel that they're adequate for these type of meetings. I'm not seeing everybody on the screen. And even with the large packets we're having now with the agendas and the packets, the small tablets aren't able to load those. So if there's anything they could do to upgrade, I would like to see that done. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Memhard.
I'd like to express particular appreciation for all the city staff and all the municipal employees. I think that the mayor's done an outstanding job leading us through this, keeping us as informed as possible. I'd also like to thank the very enterprising photographers who embarked on this really heartwarming porch project here in Gloucester, which is raising a lot of valuable funds for the Open Door. And I think has just been a really heartwarming and uplifting project during this time. So thank you all.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor O'Hara.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone for hanging in there, and we'll get through this. And please feel free to reach out to any of us should anyone have any issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Cox.
I was lucky enough to have my portrait done by Sean Henry. So that was a great initiative to help the Open Door raise money. I was happy to do my part. I want to echo everybody else's sentiments about thanking everybody for everything they've done. A lot of people have really stepped up within our community to run something as simple as a Facebook page, making sure people are getting help they need and groceries, and it's just been unbelievable. The number of people sewing masks, caps, stuff like that. It's been very heartwarming. So I appreciate all that. I don't have any actual requests from the mayor, and believe it or not, I don't have any calendar updates for you guys for events. Sorry.
Mark this down. My God.
I know.
Hallelujah. Counselor Gilman.
Thank you. So I'm happy that we had a rigorous, helpful discussion tonight. One of the things that I wanted to just bring up is just plant a seed in terms of coming into the budget time right now, is I really see a strong benefit of continuing to record our subcommittee meetings, our standing committee meetings, ZBA, Planning Board, Concom. I think it's so helpful to have these meetings in a format where we can watch actually the meeting the day after and hear all the conversations. And I've been hearing a lot from a lot of our constituents all over Gloucester that it's been really impressive, because people are really keyed in now to what is being said at the meetings, and it's just a good way to share information and to hear the actual conversation. So I don't know if it's possible for to just kind of ask James, like, if that type of capability is there for a continuation of Zoom, to be able to put cameras in our small conference room and Kairos, to be able to continue this type of technology, which really gives us the opportunity to really see what's going on all the boards and hear them. I think it's an awesome way to increase transparency. So I'm just planting a seed. I never think that it would substitute public hearings and all the things that we've been very clear about, but it is a helpful tool to have. And people think it's much easier to see than even Studio 1623 at the back, because a lot of times they don't get the presentations clearly, and the conversations are not great. But anyway, I just want to just plant a seed and see if there would be any interest from administration to consider that technology.
Thank you, Counselor. I think the same. I'm not going to ask James to answer this question tonight. Let's get through what we're doing at the moment now and for the next couple of weeks, and then maybe work on something in the future. But James, my hat's off to you, bud. I don't know what you're doing or how many hours you're working, or you are, I know.
This isn't my living room.
It is. I'm surprised you don't have a cot sitting over there doing it, but I just want to give you a shout out and say, thank you for these meetings. They're going smoothly. Not only the council meetings, but watching budget and finance the other day. I was in on the P&D, and then I went and watched it again, and O&A, and the planning, everything that you're doing. We'll see if we can get you some time off, but but thank you for what you do. We appreciate it.
I think we need to start a GoFundMe page for a James vacation.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So I am gonna, Barry, you got one more thing? I see that finger.
Yeah, just
waving.
one more thing to add. We're talking about some of the wonderful things that people are doing throughout the community. I wanted just to give a shout out to Bingao at Ocean Garden Restaurant. He was able to obtain 2,000 surgical masks, which we then delivered to Jonathan Sanger and Phil Harvey at the Fire Station Emergency Management for distribution. They're going out to, police, fire, DPW, all of the city hall department workers, senior care, etc. But
awesome.
I wanted to get a public thank you to him. 2,000 surgical masks delivered to the city.
That's huge. So I went down and I got a few masks from Phil yesterday, and I've got them in my truck. So if anybody needs to ask for masks, you can get in touch with down the fire barn with Phil Harvey, and he'll distribute you a few of them. So I had them in my truck, and this morning I saw Joe Palizzi driving his wheelchair down by St. Anne's Church, and I saw something hanging off of his face, so I pulled over. I jumped out. I asked him, I go, how are you doing on masks? And he was, this is the only one I got. So I gave him 2 masks in a package. And when I was at Walgreens later on this afternoon, there was an older gentleman behind me, and the first thing I said is, where's your mask? And he said, I can't find them. And I went outside my truck, and I made sure I got him and his wife a couple masks. And so feel free to go down to the fire barn and get a couple of masks, because that's what they're there for.
Steve, I also know somebody that is selling the homemade masks for their $5. I know there's a lot of other people that are selling them for like 15 or 20, but she's just doing it so she can reinvest and buy more fabric and elastic. Elastic's the new toilet paper. So, if anybody needs masks, if you know of anybody that needs masks, please have them contact me and I will put them in touch with this lady. I don't want people paying $20 for a mask when there's availability out there for a lot less.
All right, I just got an update from the mayor that the masks are very low at the moment down at the fire barn. So I must have got them at the right time. So that being said, can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
This is gonna, and we got to do this by roll call too?
No,
Yes.
no, that's not what, really? Okay.
Where?
Yes. I'm first. Yes.
Councilor McCarthy.
Yes.
Councilor
Joanne, you're
Memhard.
muted.
I'll move to adjourn, sure.
Yeah.
Councilor Pat.
Yes.
Councilor O'Hara.
Yes.
Councilor Holmgren.
Yes.
Councilor Gilman.
Yes.
Councilor LeBlanc, yes. Motion to adjourn is passed.
Mayor
All right.
Taken says yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Sweet dreams.
Stay safe.